Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if neglected Naruto is the reincarnation of Hagoromo part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. From the shaking of his balled up fist, the only one that was still attached to him, one could tell that Naruto Uzumaki was beyond frustrated. Team Y, Naruto said, eyes boring down into Sasuke's, who lay slumped on the broken remains of a tree. It was their last dance, a duet of deadly proportions and conflicting intentions. The one that would decide it once and for all. Naruto had won. And yet, if Naruto could gain a Ryo for every time he felt annoyed about the shinobi in front of him, Gama-chan would never go hungry again. You will never take me back, Sasuke spat, blood dripping from his split lips, still hung like a hooked fish on his idea of vengeance. His only remaining arm raised to point accusingly at Naruto. You're just like the rest of them. Naruto, too, had lost an arm from the collision between Rasengan and Chidori. Yet he still stood, unbroken, well, not physically but in spirit at least. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fist, his nails digging into his skin. Thinking of a better use for his now bleeding hand, Naruto grabbed Sasuke's collar, pulling his face so that he could see the pathetic visage that adorned him. The sourness of defeat, the rage, the anguish. Naruto almost spat at him. Me? Like the rest of them? I've been the only one who believed in you. I've been the only one who didn't give up on you despite all you've done. And you'd still give your life away even after all you've been through? After all you've seen? Sasuke snarled back, unafraid, defiant. I will have my vengeance. And vengeance will have you, Naruto growled, shoving Sasuke back to what would probably be his grave should he not receive medical attention. Can you not see how your vengeance has corrupted you for your entire life? How it continues to lead you to your own destruction? It is my purpose. It is your doom. Naruto bit back, yet he could see that his words did not reach the glassy eyes of his friend. For all his special Sharingan and Rinnegan abilities, Naruto knew not how he could be so blind. TCH, you will never know my pain, my suffering, Sasuke said. Naruto. Sasuke, Sakura said as she body flickered to their vicinity. Great, Naruto said, feeling all the eagerness to stop talking to the brick wall he called a friend. You have at him. I'm done with this. He turned his back to Sasuke and walked away, trying to find a place to clear his thoughts, but he didn't stray far. He knew just how dangerous Sasuke could be, even when disabled to this extent. Over the distance, he heard the mutterings of Sakura as she, too, tried her best to convince Sasuke to come home, to not lose himself any further than he already had. He knew it was no use. Sasuke, even when he assisted him in defeating Kagaya Atsuki, had always fought for his own agenda, his own idea of retribution. What good was his vengeance in a world where people lived in dreams? He fought so that he could see his ultimate goal come to fruition, to lash out at the world for his suffering, to have the chance to inflict the pain himself. For what? A tragedy ordered by Danzo? Injustice? The ninja world was filled with such treachery. He wasn't the only one who suffered from its cruelty. He couldn't see that the only way to move forward was to leave that anger and hatred behind. To break the cycle that trapped him and so many others. That was impossible for Sasuke. Naruto thought back to all those years ago when he made the promise to return Sasuke home. How he said that if he failed, then he'd break his shinobi code and wouldn't allow himself to become Hokage. How foolish and naive had he been then? Now that he'd seen the bloodshed, the terror, and the needless destruction of war, he had times where he realized that his dreams mattered so little in front of the tides of death, in front of the collective suffering of the masses. It was like a disease that festered like a foetid wound on the whole of humanity. A disease caused by a lack of understanding, arrogance, short-sightedness, and desperation. The past years had weighed on him heavily. Naruto was about to turn away, his legs trembling under the burden he carried, before he felt his hair at the back of his neck stand on end. He was still in his sage mode, nature energy still coursing through him, yet Naruto all but felt like a broken receiver that could not accept its generous gifts, but he still had enough in him for his senses to alert him to danger. He turned around. He saw the coiling of Sasuke's muscles, the disregard Sakura had over her safety as she was bawling her eyes out, the sneer on his face, the sobs of Sakura, the hatred, the love. Sakura! Naruto warned, and as if empowered by the wind itself, he body flickered and made it just in time to push Sakura away. And received the tip of Sasuke's Kusanagi in his left eye. AGH. Naruto screamed as he gripped the blade with his hand, reflectively channeling wind chakra to not let its accursed edges separate the digits from his hand. Sakura was there a moment later, and a swift punch powered by her monstrous strength caved in Sasuke's chest. There was no hesitation in her movement, no delay in her strike, no remorse for landing the final blow to who she'd once considered the love of her life. She grabbed Naruto to pull him away. Naruto! Her panicked voice cried out, straining from the emotions she'd displayed all but a moment ago. Sakura-chan, Naruto said as he was gently put down a few paces away. He used his one remaining eye to peer up at her. His voice was also strained, although for different reasons. Exhaustion. Fatigue. Regret. Failure. He stared at her glassy teal-colored eyes. It was bloodshot. Her eyelids were puffy from her tears. Her expression, she was petrified, as if frozen from the tragedy that was unraveling before her. She couldn't believe it. She refused to believe it. I'm sorry, Naruto said, thinking not about her concerns for his health, but of other things entirely, the promise. It took a moment for Sakura to ingest his words, to understand what he meant. Fuck the promise! Sakura shouted, snapping out of her panic state. She began healing him, using everything she could from her years of training under her mentor, Tsunade. Yet her hands were shaking. She was always taught to stay calm no matter how dire the situation. It was ingrained into her, as a core of Tsunade's teachings. She'd been calm, even when everyone thought Naruto had died. She always thought saving him was within reach. Now she saw the writing on the wall. The one thing that was a rock in her life, the steady silent strength of her teammate, was about to be lost in the unrelenting cruel currents of this wretched world. She wanted to believe that this was still salvageable, that he would come out of this somehow. She was a genius in the medical arts, and with Naruto's prodigious healing abilities, being a Jinchuriki and an Uzumaki, she thought that nothing would be able to put him down. But Sakura saw that Naruto had nothing left to give. She saw the weakness in his body, the fading flickering fire behind his only eye dimming by the second. She didn't feel this hopeless even when his heart stopped beating after the Kyuubi was extracted from him. She felt as if Naruto's spirit was fading, that all hope was truly lost. Was this what Tsunade felt like when Dan, the love of her life, died in her arms? Sakura did not love Naruto like that, not the way he wanted her to, even after their night of elopement, when she falsely told him that she loved him just to try and throw away her life in order to stop Sasuke. Her love for Naruto was only platonic, but even then it was as fierce as she could have ever loved anything and anyone in her life. He was like a brother to her, and yet fate will take from her just as it took from everyone else. Naruto turned his only remaining eye towards the sky, disappointed. He knew not what he was disappointed in. Himself? Sasuke? The world? Perhaps he was disappointed in all of them. He thought of the words of Hagoromo, the words of the prophecy. How Indra and Azura would unite to save the world. Naruto thought he'd end the cycle once and for all. Perhaps he was still too naive, too optimistic once more. Stay with me, Naruto, stay with me, Sakura said, her voice shaking, her tears falling on his face as her mystic palm created a strange tingling at the sight of the wound, but Naruto knew it was no use. I have failed, Naruto said, his voice even weaker. No, you haven't, Sakura firmly stated. Hang in there, Naruto, you're going to be fine, you're going to be fine. She said those words as if she was chanting a prayer. With a tug, and the sound of screaming, the sword was dislodged from his eye socket. The sound of screaming came from him, he realized a moment later. You should have numbed it before you did that, Naruto joked before he coughed out blood. Sakura seemed frantic and hysterical. She was trying her best to collect herself, but Naruto could see the tremors in her frame. I'm sorry, Naruto said once more, almost like a broken record. I couldn't bring him home. Damn it, Naruto, stop talking, Sakura snarled, concentrating on healing his wounds. I don't care about that. I don't care about the stupid promise. I should have known that he was a lost cause and I made you pay for it. I'm the one who's sorry. I was stupid and I was blind. No, Naruto weakly laughed. Despite it all, I'm the one who's blind. I just lost an eye. Idiot, Sakura muttered, her voice breaking along with her heart. I should have relieved you of that burden years ago, and I have. I relieve you of your promise, Naruto. Just stay awake. I can't lose you. Not you of all people. A gasp was heard from a distance. Naruto-kun, a voice called out. It was familiar. It made his spine tingle. A memory that sparked from all those months ago. If there was anyone that ever loved him romantically, it was her. He just hadn't known how to react to it. He regretted it, as he saw whatever potential love they would have shared slip away from him. Hi na Tachan, Naruto muttered, truly straining this time. Over here! Sakura called out, help me heal him. What happened? Hinata screamed as she came into view, a fierceness in her tenor that rang with promised retribution should she receive no answer to her demands. Sasuke tried to get one last shot in when I wasn't paying attention, Sakura replied, despair lacing her tone. He pushed me out of the way. It was then that the faint sound of laughter could be heard from Sasuke's direction. It was torn and broken, as if he was struggling to breathe. Serves him right, Naruto thought, his ribs must be poking into his lungs. That's a nice goodbye present, Sasuke made out between struggling gasps. Then, more people arrived at the scene. Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, Kiba, Shino, Lee, Tenten. They were tight-knit as a group. Even when he asked them to leave Sasuke to him, they still would not stay far. Ino, Hinata, stop the bleeding, Tenten, work on his arm, Sakura commanded, finally becoming the prodigy medic queen that she was. Then, as she observed the other three girls using all their medical ninjutsu to the best of their abilities, she quickly got up and dashed over to Sasuke. Sakura scoffed, watching her approach. Still the love-struck girl, are you? Sakura said nothing as she neared him. She knew that Sasuke didn't have enough in him to even lift a finger. Hold still, she said, her voice as cold as ice. What are you doing? Hey! What are you, Arg? Sasuke screamed. Naruto barely heard the rest of his pained cries before having the darkness take over him, pulling him into his mindscape. In Naruto's mindscape. Kid Kurama said, the usual timbre of his voice croaking in exertion, as Naruto came before him. The body of Naruto in his mind oddly reflected the damage dealt to him in real life. Broken as all hell. Kurama, Naruto said, coming to a snap decision, I'm going to release you. You what? Kurama responded, almost choking on his own spit. Then he growled, demanding an explanation, but even that lacked the usual tremor from his once powerful frame. Now he felt weak, lethargic to a degree he hadn't thought possible. Naruto just stared sadly at him for a moment before explaining. We both know that the fight took more out of us than we thought, Naruto said in sympathy. He had half of your chakra and the rest of the bijus. It was a miracle we even went the distance. Kurama stared at the blonde-haired boy before him, even when he so badly wanted to shut it and take a century-long nap. So you're going to give up? Naruto had no reply to that question, only looking down into his open palms. Or palm, because the other one had disintegrated from the clash. Pathetic. Kurama spat, to Naruto's irritation. This was all it took for you to drop dead? Your mother would be ashamed. Naruto knew that Kurama was giving a low blow just because he wanted to ignite a spark of defiance in him. All it did was make him frustrated. I'm tired, alright? Naruto snapped. Though, as he took a breath to rein in his temper, he almost sounded defeated in his next words, his shoulders falling slack. I'm tired of the constant disappointment this world gives me. So you are unable to convert the pathetic Uchiha? Kurama sneered, going for the root of the problem. So what? The prophecy. The prophecy can go to hell. Kurama snapped, as if he was re-energized by the anger he felt. I knew Indra and Azura. The brothers were like oil and water. They and their bloodlines will never get along. Naruto stared down at his hands ashamedly. I don't know what to do. You take your promises too seriously, Kurama scoffed. If I cannot even keep one, just one, then what weight do my words have? Naruto said as he sat down. Then he sighed. At least if I do this now, if I free you, you don't have to die with me. Kurama turned his head away, refusing to look at his warden. The giant being did not want Naruto to see his expression, his own heartbreak. Foolish child, I was free the moment you bonded with me, the moment you became my friend. At that, Naruto looked away from the giant fox as well, though in shame. What do you mean? Naruto asked, trying to hide his sadness, but too curious to remain silent. Kurama didn't respond. Well, leaving now wouldn't be such a terrible idea, would it? Naruto suggested. Just tell me how it works. There's no ceiling tag to pull off anymore. TCH, Kurama shook his giant head. I will stay. But I will stay, Kurama shouted with all the power he could muster, his voice reverberating throughout Naruto's mindscape. I will not abandon you, even if you've abandoned yourself. Abandon myself? I'm dying for Kami's sake, Naruto argued. Even Sakura can't save me the way I am. I have nothing left in me. Ye of little faith, Kurama tittered, then he tilted his head up as if noticing something in the ceiling. HM? What's this? Naruto didn't dare hope that something could bring him back from this. What is it? Someone is meddling with our fates, Kurama said. It's Hagoromo? What are you planning on doing, old man? What do you, arg? Naruto interrupted himself with a scream. My eye. Naruto grabbed at his left eye, or where it would have been before it was stabbed. What's happening? Naruto! Kurama shouted. In the real world. The next thing Naruto knew, he was back in the realm of consciousness, staring into the many worried faces that were above him. Hinata-chan, Sakura-chan, Ino, everyone, Naruto muttered, what just happened? Oh, thank Kami you're back. Sakura said, we're transplanting your eye right now, try to stay awake. Naruto-kun. Hinata said, her face was one of deep empathy, please hang in there. You'll be okay. Why, you're transplanting my eye? With what? Whose? Naruto asked, his voice too weak to portray his bafflement. Though for some reason he felt energy flowing back into him. Sakura raised her hand to show him, and there, in her bloody digits, was an eye. And not just any eye, it was a Rinnegan. A 6-tomo Rinnegan. Wow, then almost as if coming into a realization, Naruto glanced as best he could to look at where he remembered Sasuke being. There was only one place where it could potentially have come from. What he saw made him gasp. There Sasuke was as a bloody smear that painted the trees behind it red. Sakura-chan, Naruto said. He turned back to her to see her teary teal-colored eyes. You didn't, I'm sorry. Don't you dare apologize again, Sakura said, at least he won't hurt anyone anymore. Now hold still. Naruto could only remain as he was, like a wet strand of noodles splattered on the sidewalk. The operation to save him began. The sensations he felt were, in a word, strange. Sometimes there would be pain, but most of the time it just felt itchy. Sakura, Hinata and Ino were working on his eye and Tenten was doing a stellar job working on his arm. Limb dismemberment was a much more common injury in the battlefield compared to transplanting an eye, so Tenten seemed comfortable being given the duty to fix him up there. Aside from the physical sensations, what truly occupied his tumultuous mind was the crushing disappointment that Sasuke had departed from this world without receiving the help he really needed. Was there anything he could have done differently? Was he a terrible person to have let a friend fall this far from his path? These questions rang in his mind as he was being treated. It took about an hour, and there seemed to be many steps in the process. Naruto knew enough medical jutsu from Sakura to fix up cuts and scrapes or to stop the bleeding during emergencies, but operations such as these were well beyond him. Actually, he did regrow Kakashi's eye using creation of all things, but that was before Hagoromo took back his Sage of Six Paths Yang seal. He didn't know how to feel about having a Rinnegan. Honestly, he would have preferred to just have his regular eye back. Now with this, it was as if a part of Sasuke would always be with him to remind him of his failure. Then something tickled his mind as he rode on that thought. Wake uniting the blood of Ajura and Indra. There wasn't any chance that this was what the prophecy meant. Right? Then, with a cold tingling feeling, he could see from his left eye again. He felt invigorated, like something had breathed new life into him. Feel better? Sakura asked. Her emotions had calmed down over the hour, and a faint cheerfulness could be heard from her voice. It seemed that her brother in all but name would survive this after all. He truly was a person who fought against all odds. Yeah, Naruto said, blinking, I can fully see again. Sakura smiled at him, though it was fragile and filled with bitter warmth. She was glad that he was okay. She was saddened at the cost they both had to pay for it to happen. She didn't regret her actions. She just wished she'd seen it sooner. All this trouble would have been avoided if her resolve had been stronger. That's good. I'm glad, Sakura began, but she was interrupted as Naruto began shaking. Arg! Naruto shouted as he felt himself vibrate. It was yet another odd sensation he felt over the past hour, and he couldn't tell whether he liked it. Naruto! Everyone shouted. But that was the last they all saw of him. Because just like that, he was gone. Naruto felt the world around him spin. He could no longer tell where he was. A cloud of confusion fogged his mind, blinding him to the breaking of reality, the twisting of time, making him not understand what was happening. Truly and utterly. There were strange shapes, colors, sounds coming from all directions, scents of ash and smoke. He didn't understand. Couldn't. Kurama! Naruto shouted aloud, what in the world is going on? Like a faint echo, he heard a mutter come back from his mindscape. Or was that just an echo from a distance? He could not tell. Then, it was over. And Naruto felt like he needed to vomit. He flopped over to lay on his stomach, his single arm propelling himself upwards a bit before he projectile vomited his lunch onto the rocky grounds of the Valley of the End. "Oh Kami," he said once he thought it was over. Then he vomited some more. It took him a moment to gather his bearings, and as he found himself steady enough to look around, and he saw that he was alone. He was in the exact same place he was a moment ago, in the Valley of the End after his fight with Sasuke, but none of his friends were there. Where did everyone go? Naruto asked aloud. Kurama, you have an explanation for all of this? He received no response. Naruto felt his stomach drop, truly feeling a sense of loneliness this time. No. No. Not Kurama. Kurama? Naruto's voice shook as he said it. He worried that whatever had happened to him had killed his friend. Then, all of a sudden, crash. Naruto jumped as, to the forest surrounding the valley on his left, he heard something awfully large impact the ground. It was as if Old Man Inoki had summoned another meteor out of the sky and made it land right next to him. With an intuitive feeling in his gut, Naruto made his way towards where he heard the sound of impact had come from, almost stumbling on his own feet in his dizziness. Lo and behold, it was none other than Kurama. Outside of Naruto's belly. The demon of hatred was truly enormous as he eclipsed the trees in his size. His fur was like a field of tall orange grass, rustling in the wind. Kurama! Naruto shouted as the giant fox shook his head to regain his composure. He'd been ungracefully dropped in the middle of the forest like a giant ragdoll. Naruto looked at him up and down. You're free. Huh? Wah, Kurama said before his eyes widened as he took in his surroundings. What in Hagoromo's name? Then Kurama caught a look of Naruto. What happened to your eye? Naruto responded before shaking his head to clear the last remaining dregs of wooziness. I can see perfectly fine, Kurama. More importantly, you're free. And I'm not dead from it. Naruto patted himself down just to check that he was still in one piece. Kurama, too, looked upon himself, as if seeing truly for the first time that he was free. After all these years. Who cares about that, brat? Kurama said, ignoring his own newfound feeling of freedom until he could digest it later. He was too confused, too lost in what just occurred to him and his container. So Kurama backstepped the topic a bit. You have a Rinnegan. Why? Naruto looked at the giant fox quizzically. Oh, you didn't see Sakura, Hinata and Ino working on transplanting Sasuke's eye on me the past hour or so? Naruto tilted his head in question. No? Kurama said, tone unsure, then he hesitated. Oh wait, I think I remember something of the sort. I was distracted by father's energy coursing through us. It was Naruto's turn to look confused. You mean old man Hagoromo? Kurama nodded. I sensed him meddling with fate, or perhaps he was just enforcing it. Who knows what goes on in his plane of existence? Naruto took a moment to digest the words, only to have his thoughts track back to what plagued his mind earlier. Wait, you can't be saying that. That this was what he meant by the unity of the blood of Asura and Indra. Kurama finished for him, already reading Naruto's thoughts. Perhaps. But it's an eye, not Sasuke's blood, Naruto protested. Prophecies can be fickle. Kurama flicked his long, drooping ears and licked his lips as if tasting the air. Didn't you say that the prophecy can go to hell just an hour ago? Naruto asked. Kurama shrugged, which looked awfully strange on a giant fox, as the motion uprooted a few trees that were partially dangling from him in his prone form. Perhaps that was why he granted that Sasuke brat the eye in the first place. He foresaw that this would happen. Naruto's eyebrows arched quizzically. Say, how can Hagoromo even do all this, all that you're suggesting? Isn't he dead? Kurama shook his head. He cannot be defined by life and death like mere mortals such as you, as he partially presides over those dominions. Even one such as I do not understand the nature of his existence. That explanation flew above Naruto's head. Right, anyways, do you know what just happened? Where did everyone go? And how did you get pulled out of me? Kurama shook his head. I do not know, but. Kurama looked around. I have been in prison for so long that now I'm free. I do not know what to do. The giant fox looked at Naruto like he wanted nothing more than to jump back into his vessel amidst such uncertainty. Naruto looked unsympathetically, feeling guilt for his friend's imprisonment. I'm sorry for that, Kurama, on behalf of my clan, no, on behalf of all shinobi. We did wrong by you. Kurama let out a deep sigh, seeing that Naruto was clearly misinterpreting the look that Kurama gave him. I don't want an apology, boy. Least of all, coming from you. Naruto swallowed. Well, whatever it is you're going to do, Kurama, to Naruto's surprise, gave him a smile. Then he flicked his head, swinging his giant ears such that it sort of slapped Naruto in the face or his entire body from how big it was. Oh! Naruto yelped. Kurama huffed. That was for giving up on me when things went to shit. I don't want to hear anything of that sort coming from you again, boy. Naruto rolled his eyes in response. Yes, Mom. Kurama also rolled his eyes at that. Then he took a moment to analyze his thoughts before speaking. He took on a more heartfelt, somber tone. One that Naruto had never heard him take before. Kurama locked eyes with his container. I've always been with you, brat, ever since you were born and since our bond, whether you know it or not, we made a pact. To be friends, and in a way, brothers. You are the descendant of my creator. A part of me will always be with you, Naruto. Naruto felt a rush of emotions flood him from those words. He became a bit teary-eyed, but he nodded, understanding the meaning behind the fox's words. It was a farewell. Where will you go? Somewhere safe, Kurama responded, yet as he did so his ears perked up. That's strange. What is it? Naruto inquired. I sense my kin they are still imprisoned in their Jinchuriki. What? Naruto jumped. Confusion and alarm turned his blood cold, but that shouldn't be possible. Kurama's eyes flickered as if he was expanding his senses to the world, seeing it from a perspective Naruto could sort of emulate through his sage mode. I feel that not all is as it seems, Naruto. For now, return home to Konoha, though I advise you to be cautious. Sneak in and observe. You've been good at that ever since you were a child, Kurama said. Why would I need to? Naruto asked, confused. Just do it. Observe and learn. Make your decisions from there. I, on the other hand, just thought of a great place to stay. Where? Yuzu. Yuzu? Naruto inquired. Yuzushigakure, the home of your ancestors. It pains me to return to a place where I was once imprisoned, but I sense that none occupies that land after its destruction. Kurama turned to Naruto. Do what you need to do and then come find me there. Naruto shakily nodded, all right. Gee, goodbye, Kurama. The giant fox shook his head at the dramatic reaction of his former vessel, amused. This will not be the last time we see each other, brother. If not, I will hunt you down myself. Kurama smiled once more and then, with a great leap and a flap of his mighty tails, he was gone. Just like that. Naruto just stood there. It all came crashing down so quickly. Now he had, what did they call it? Chronic loneliness? Decision paralysis? Whatever more mental conditions a Yamanaka could attach to him. He didn't know. All he wanted to do was just go home and sleep. He prayed that whatever just happened, that they did not take just that little thing away from him. Oh, how wrong he was. Naruto had heeded Kurama's advice. But he felt would have done it even if Kurama had said nothing. Because for one thing, Konoha was there. It was there. As in, it was in one piece. There was no giant crater caused by what people dubbed the Pain Invasion. There was no sign of struggle or damage caused by the war. There was nothing. Nothing wrong with Konoha. And it gave Naruto chills. What in Kami's name is happening? On the cliff face he saw from the distance, a face was missing from the Hokage monument. The face of Lady Tsunade. Naruto's gut was tap dancing in a pool of confusion. This just keeps getting weirder and weirder. Naruto snuck in through the gates, simply by using his dialed sage senses and jumping over the walls when he felt that no one was watching him. He wished he could have said that it was a difficult task to infiltrate his beloved village, but it was far easier than he'd have liked it to be. Perhaps that was why Uchiha Itachi and Hashigaki Kisame simply walked in that one time. With Itachi's Sharingan, it would have been even easier than what he just did. It was understandable that Konoha cared less about guarding the walls as the enemy was likely rooted out at the nation's borders through its border patrol squad. But still, this was sort of embarrassing. Naruto had disguised himself with a simple henge to look like a regular civilian. He walked around observing this and that, and so far, no one had batted an eye. He oddly found the technique easier to execute than before. Perhaps it was because I no longer held Kurama's enormous chakra capacity. No, it can't be. Even his own natural capacity was almost just as large as Kurama's, an absurd fact that was almost blasphemous to even think about. Having as much chakra as a Bijou. Perhaps it was his Uzumaki bloodline, or perhaps he'd developed it over extended use of his shadow clones. Either way, even in his weakest base form, he was like a walking chakra battery. So there must be some other reason he found molding chakra easier. He wasn't magically just better at manipulating chakra for no reasonable explanation. Maybe it was because of the Rinnegan. Maybe it's because. Or perhaps even. Naruto stopped his train of thought and sighed, knowing he was just trying to distract himself, trying to ignore the reality around him. He felt scared. Not in the way he had for a long time. It was not terror caused by facing an enemy far above his league like he did against Orochimaru as a kid, or even fear for the lives of his loved ones. It was the uncertainty, the confusion that he had that scared him. It was like he actually failed in the war and was in an infinite Tsukuyomi, but he knew without a doubt that that wasn't true. He wasn't about to question the reality he was living in. To do so would be madness. All he could do was just accept it, no matter how absurd it seemed. Naruto looked around, observing the faces of these villagers. It wasn't like the hardened resolve one had after war, or even during the rebuilding of Konoha. He did not know these people. He needed more data, as Shikamaru often said, more information. So, following his gut, he went to the one place where he was most familiar. A few moments later, he stood in front of his favorite stall. Ichiraku Ramen. He stepped in, and was greeted by the welcoming visage of Im and Tuchi. The moment he caught sight of them, he almost cried in relief. At the very least, these two were well and okay. They weren't just some random people that changed as much as what he saw around him did. "Welcome. Please have a seat," Tuchi said, his voice the same nostalgic tone of a caring father. "Thanks," Naruto responded, not letting the emotions show in his speech. He quickly ordered one of his favorites, 10 bowls of shio ramen. Everything was sort of a favorite to him, especially the miso ramen. He decided to keep it simple rather than going with his number one pick. He devoured them, inhaled them, gobbled them up like the noodles were air. Whichever way you wanted to say it, Naruto was just grateful that, at the very least, Ichiraku Ramen still served the food of the gods the same way it always did. My, Im said as he finished his last bowl. Yet another voice that evoked many feelings within him. I've never seen anyone inhale all that ramen like that before. You just might become our best customer. At that, the hairs on Naruto's arms stood on end. There was that sense of uncertainty again. That wouldn't be something she said if they knew him. If they knew a Naruto that ate out their stall time and time again on a regular basis. He decided to take a gamble and air out his suspicions. Say, do you guys know where Naruto is? He asked, still in his henge and playing the role of an unknown civilian. Naruto? Do we know a person of that name? Im asked, looking towards Tuchi. Naruto's heart dropped, his suspicions coming alive. No, I can't say we do. It would be a name we'd remember if we did. Naruto is a name after my own heart. Ha ha ha, Tuchi said, gesturing to the fish cake topping. Naruto took a shaky breath, trying not to freak out. Think rationally, Naruto. What would Shikamaru do? I see, Naruto rescinded. Well, here's for the bill. You can keep the change. Naruto handed them far more than 10 bowls worth of ramen, to their surprise, and got up to leave. Wait. Sir. Im called out, we can't take this. This is far too much to be considered a tip. Naruto smiled at the kind-hearted people. At the very least, even if they didn't remember him for some odd reason, they were still the gentle-natured people he knew. Keep it, he said, that was the best-tasting ramen I've had in my entire life. With that, he body flickered away, to Im and Tuchi's shock. Was that person a ninja? I didn't see a headband. Tuchi shrugged. If he liked noodles, then he can't be all that bad, right? Must be an off-duty umbu. Naruto made his way back to his old apartment complex. Only to find out that it wasn't old, nor was it an apartment complex at all. Somehow it turned into a building that would fit in the red light district seemingly overnight. He could see half-dressed civilian women, trying to woo potential clients that walked by. If Naruto was suspicious before, he was downright sure of it now. If it wasn't made obvious by the fact that old man Tucci didn't know who he was. Either he traveled back in time or he was in a different world. A different reality. A different Konoha from all the changes he'd observed. He was, once again, truly questioning whether he was in a Rinne Sharingan-induced illusion right now. Though the fact that he was even questioning it made it doubtful. No infinite Tsukuyami would purposely allow his knowledge of its existence, or even his questioning of reality itself, right? It would make it such that he was oblivious, no matter the cost. Or would allowing him to question his reality make him second-guess himself like this and buy more into the fake world that was casted before him? No, he couldn't think of it this way. He will not doubt. He was Uzumaki Naruto, and he had kicked Kaguya's ass. He felt it to be true in his bones. If this wasn't real, then nothing ever truly was. He will not go into an existential crisis no matter how messed up reality was. That tale that his late godfather made up as a thinking exercise, something about living in the Matrix, can go to hell. Naruto glanced around him once more, putting his doubts of reality to rest once and for all. He was in Konoha. It was still a world he knew. But so many things have changed. There was a much stronger possibility that occurred to him. What had Shikamaru mentioned in conversation that one time when they were cloud-gazing? Alternate universes? Parallel worlds? Naruto couldn't remember the details but dreaded that this was what Shikamaru had meant. It was entirely possible that the implanting of his Rinnegan eye could cause such a reaction, or the fact that Kurama mentioned Hagoromo dabbling in his fate. It was entirely possible that he was placed here on purpose. This is so weird, Naruto muttered. Now, he knew, he was officially screwed. I wish Kurama hadn't left. Okay, don't freak out. One thing at a time. First, a place to stay. He had money to spare in his back pouch, especially from how much Tsunade paid him. Enough to survive. Enough to adapt. Else he'd just survive off the land in the forest of death, or something. Considering the fact that Tucci of all people didn't know who Naruto was, he suspected that either this world's Naruto went by a completely different name, or didn't exist at all. He didn't know how to feel about the latter option. This almost felt like a fresh start. Yeah, actually that's a good way to look at it, he thought. He could see himself hating the fact that he lost all his friends, or at least the friends that know him, but he was just happy that there was a possibility that some of his friends were still alive. Erosenin, Old Man Hokage, Niji. He felt like his many burdens were lifted off of him, but he was also disappointed that he couldn't see the fruits of his labors in his old world. Would there be peace at last? Had his, Jiraiya's and Nagato's dreams succeeded? He suspected that he would never know. Alas, there were things he could and couldn't control. So he chose to focus on the good things about his current situation. He was free. He was always one thing, or the other. The pariah. The hero. The monster. The savior. He never had the opportunity to be normal. There was always so much on his shoulders. Did he really mind no one knowing who he was? He didn't know. He'd always said that he wanted to be the Hokage, but that was just for recognition and acknowledgement. Once he had it as a hero, he found that it was almost too much for him to bear. As he said to Kurama, he was tired of it all. Was it so wrong to just kick back for a tiny bit? Naruto shook his head. One thing at a time. Actually, I remember there being an inn in this direction, hopefully it's still there. The inn was still there, thankfully. He checked in with the name Yuki Neru, inspired from one of his first adversaries, Yuki Haku. He wondered if in this world he was still alive. When he considered kicking back, it didn't mean that he would do so just yet. He had too many things to fix. If this truly was an alternate world to his own, he had to check on his friends. Whether they're all doing okay. Is Niji alive? Is Gaara still suffering from insomnia? Did Sasuke defect like he did last time? How about Sakura, Hinata, Lee, Shikamaru? And so on. Not to mention the tailed beasts still stuck in their containers. He had much to do. That was for sure. Why did Hagoromo want this for him? What was he meant to do here? That's a good question, a voice said from beside him. Naruto jumped off his bed in surprise. He recovered quickly and stared at the man who somehow broke into his room. Then he just stood there, stunned, as he realized who it was. Old Man Hagoromo? Naruto queried. What are you doing here? How did you even get here? Hagoromo chuckled. I simply wished to speak with you, and now I am here. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. That's a great answer, sir. Indeed. Naruto's eyebrow twitched once more. Then he sighed. What is going on here? He asked. You've figured it out, haven't you? This world is different from your own. I won't tell you how, as that is what you'll eventually find out in time. So you placed me here? Why? Why, indeed? Perhaps you have been put here to do whatever you wish. To live your life as you please. Naruto looked at him skeptically. So there's no purpose behind all of this? What happened to meddling with fate? Hagoromo shook his head as if he was speaking to an ignorant child. Perhaps Naruto was to him, with his centuries of existence. One does not simply meddle with fate. Either it is as it always meant to be, or it isn't. You being here is no exception. You are here for a reason, though you may never know what that reason is. Naruto paused, digesting his words. So you're saying that my so-called fate is just to go with the flow of things? I can just do whatever I want? Yes, that is exactly what fate is for everyone. An invisible design that sometimes bends and twists, but will remain the same as it always had. An infinite ball of yarn that slowly unravels into a single string. For some reason, the old sage seemed more happy than when Naruto last met him. It was like he was glad that things were turning out the way it was. You came all the way here to tell me that? Naruto shook his head in disbelief. No, I came to give you this, Hagoromo said. Then he placed a wrapped bundle on the table in his room. A wrapped bundle that was in the shape of an arm. That's an arm? Naruto queried. Yes. For you, Hagoromo cheered. If you weren't caught up in all of this, you'd have received it eventually. Perhaps you'd have found ways to regrow it yourself, but I believe that you'd prefer having this. It's made from the cells of the late founder of this village. Naruto was ever the more confused. For one thing, he had no clue how to regrow an arm, much less his, but he put that aside for now. You mean this arm belongs to Senju Hashirama? Naruto asked, surprised, almost implying something ridiculous. Hagoromo, with all his wisdom, caught on to Naruto's train of thought. It's made and grown from his cells, not chopped off from his dead body, boy. Hagoromo rolled his eyes. It would serve you well. Naruto was relieved to hear that. He didn't know how to feel about having one of the Shodais of the universe prancing around without an arm just so he could have one. How am I even supposed to attach? Before Naruto could even finish his sentence, he blinked and the arm disappeared from the table. Huh! Where did it? Oh. Naruto gaped as looked at himself. Where nothing but a stump used to be, an arm was now attached to his body. He now had two arms again, except one was wrapped in these weird bandages. You'd best not remove the cloth wrapping, boy, Hagoromo advised. It's there out of necessity for reasons I can't be bothered to explain. Just treat it as you would with your skin. Oh, Naruto responded intellectually, right. Also here, Hagoromo handed Naruto a small notebook. For your eyes. Naruto dutifully received the book and read the title. Ways to Use Your Rinnegan by Hagoromo Otsutsuki. That's convenient. And don you mean my eye as in singular? Hagoromo responded. Whether he was annoyed by the correction and chose not to answer, Naruto did not know. Why did I receive this eye in the first place? Why did this ever happen? Hagoromo raised an eyebrow at him. Did you receive just an eye? Naruto raised his eyebrow in return. Well, yeah? Tell me, did I ever give Sasuke just an eye? Naruto thought about it, then his eyes widened. And no, you gave him half of your chakra. The yin half, and his eye developed from then on. Chakra of which is now yours along with the yang half I gave to you during your medical procedure. Permanently this time. The eye is not transplanted, boy, it belongs to you now amongst other things. What is that supposed to? Before he could finish, Hagoromo cut him off, his purple eyes losing its focus. I have lost the reins on this universe, it has become forsaken to me, but you will be everything it needs. Goodbye, boy. I imagine that you'll go on to do great things, just as you already have done to this point. Be free, my son, and remember, everything happens for a reason. Wait. Naruto called out, but it was too late as Hagoromo was already gone. A moment passed as Naruto stared into the spot where the Sage of Six Paths had been. He didn't reappear. Great, Naruto said, pondering on his cryptic final message. He had so many questions, and for some reason a feeling in his gut told him that it would be a long time before he got to see Hagoromo again. If he'd ever meet him again at all. Well shit, he swore, something he rarely did, wanting to be a good role model for the future generations and all. He sat down on his bed, contemplating the interaction he just had as well as the path that lay before him. His thoughts were sort of in a jumble, with too many things happening all at once for him to think clearly. He sighed and put it to rest for now. He glanced towards his new arm and flexed it, testing whether each muscle functioned the way it should. It did. He tested its flexibility, mobility, strength, and well, everything, really. Honestly, he could practically feel no difference between his two arms aside from their appearances. At least I can cast jutsu again, he muttered, though it wasn't like he had a large repertoire of jutsu in the first place. He could cast shadow clones without the requirement of hand signs now, so that was a moot point. Other than that. Well, Naruto can admit that he only knew very few things, but the few things he did know, he was really, really good at. He'd mastered most of the skills he'd learned, whether it was the various forms of the Rasengan, or the Sage mode, or whatever. So having two arms again wasn't as groundbreaking as it would be for other shinobi who'd lost a limb during combat. Still, it was good to punch people in the face with a 1-2 again. He sighed, laying back on the creaky bed. He stared at the ceiling. Whatever comes from here on out, hopefully it'll work out for the best. With that, the blonde shinobi closed his eyes and lost himself to sleep. Day 2. The next day, Naruto set out to explore the village. He had enough money in pocket to last him about a month or so. After that, he either needed to find employment, or re-enlist as a shinobi for Konoha to support himself monetarily. Then again, if his back was against the wall, he could just escape into the wilds and get by that way. Though he would prefer it if he had somewhat of a decent presence of human interaction in his life. Nonetheless, he was fully confident in his ability to survive, no matter the situation. When he walked out this morning, he was glad the receptionist paid little attention to him yesterday, rudely having his nose stuck in a book, as surely he would have noticed the entire arm he'd somehow regrown overnight. Naruto could hinge, but he doesn't know how to make one of his limbs invisible to the eye. He had wanted to get started on the book Hagoromo had given him when he woke up, but as he flipped open the first page there was a note that was wedged between the cover and the first page. It read, "Don't level Konoha by turning it into a crater on your first day. Take your time. H." Blunt, but Naruto had conceded the point. So Naruto decided that it was best to leave it for later, preferably in a much safer space. He could easily handle himself as he was now. Just as he always did. Naruto stored the book within a storage scroll and kept it on him at all times. Though it wasn't like it would be any use to anyone other than pain should someone steal it. He was now looking for a place to have breakfast. As much as he loved having ramen for 3 meals a day, something Sakura had said about having a balanced diet being good for your health convinced him to look for other options rather than his usual salty indulgence. You can never say that he didn't listen to his doctor if he went out of his way to not enjoy the food of the gods. Guess this is as good a place as any, he said, staring at the yakiniku restaurant. He remembered this place being a favorite of Team 10. He stepped foot inside it, and was greeted by a brunette waitress. "Welcome," she said cheerfully. "Is it just yourself today, sir?" Naruto nodded. "Table for one coming right up," she said. "Just this way, please." It didn't take long for the meat to arrive and he got to grilling them. Before he enjoyed his first bite though, a ring of the bell on top of the front door rang, signaling the entry of another customer. Naruto almost dropped the meat between his chopsticks when he turned to see who it was. It was Shikamaru, Choiji and Ino. It was Team 10. Speak of the Shinigami, and they shall appear. Naruto went back to munching on the succulent meat, trying to be as nonchalant as possible, despite every fiber of his being vibrating in anticipation. While he was great at infiltration and stealth missions, he was equally as terrible at staying undercover. According to Sakura, he was apparently just too Naruto for such a task. As if that made any sense. Now, though, he sort of understood her point as he had to catch himself from initiating a greeting with them. He so wanted to say hello, to wave, to ask about how their day had been, but he couldn't. To them, he was a stranger, and in turn they were strangers to him. Supposedly. He could see the similarities between these guys and the Team 10 of his world. They all looked exactly the same except for the fashion choice of one person in particular. Shikamaru was wearing a more evolved form of what he used to wear as a genin rather than his usual chunin uniform. Choji and Ino, on the other hand, wore practically the same attire as their counterparts from his world as young adults. They look the same. Walk the same. Are they the same? In their presence, Naruto outwardly remained indifferent. Internally, though, he was glad and relieved to meet his old friends again, even if they remembered nothing of him. They also happened to sit down on the table right to his left. Great. Now he could show how great he really was in staying undercover. It's our official last meal as second-year academy students. Next week, we'll all be in our final years. I'm so excited. Ino cried. Naruto almost spat his food out. They're still academy students? He snuck a glance towards and sure enough, he looked to be around his age. 16 to 17 years old. Naruto had graduated as a genin when he was 12. That was over 4 years ago, and since then he felt like he'd gone through hell and back. And they're telling him that they only just finished their second year in the academy? Different world, different standards, Naruto. Don't think too much of it. He did think much of it. Though the deeper he thought, the more it actually made sense to him that people should only graduate from the academy at around 18 rather than 12 or 13. Being exposed to the horrors of the ninja way as a youngling barely into his teens had caused him many sleepless nights. He remembered Sakura stating that such premature exposure to mental trauma at such an early age had always led to terrible mental health down the line. Case in point, Kakashi. He'd never gotten over what happened to Rin and Obito, and carried that burden to this day. Was being exposed to the ninja world as children really worth it? He'd thought about that all the time. Now, in some sense, he was glad that this world took a different path than his own in this aspect. It was more humane, even if it was absurdly different from the customs of his own world. With this new information, Naruto re-explored the possibility of re-enlisting as a ninja. Would he have to retake the academy exams again? Then Chunin exams? Then Jonin exams? Naruto shuddered. It seemed so tedious and boring. As he chowed down and got lost in his thoughts, he failed to notice the glances Ino gave him from the table over. It wasn't until he finished chewing his fifth bite of meat that he glanced towards Team 10 again and saw that she was staring right at him. He looked like a succulent rabbit caught in the hungry gaze of a ninja, eyes wide and his chopstick still in his mouth. Yes, he was absolutely awesome at staying undercover. She grinned at him. Hey there, handsome. Haven't seen you around before. Naruto quizzically scrunched his eyebrows, thinking that perhaps he hadn't failed in being inconspicuous after all. He checked behind him to see if she was speaking to another person that he couldn't see. Yet, as he looked back and saw that her eyes still remained on him of all people, he was now sure that inconspicuous had officially been thrown out the window. He pointed a finger at himself. And me? Ino giggled. Yeah, you. Naruto almost forgot he had a henge on, so thankfully he didn't just outright ask whether she recognized him. His henge wasn't anything too drastic. He didn't want to overcomplicate things by changing his face entirely because he had a hard time remembering which face he'd used once he'd stopped the technique and needed to reuse it the next day. Thus, he'd opted to just change certain features of himself, keeping it simple, like his eye color from blue and black ringed purple to both plain brown, his hair from blonde to brunette, got rid of his whisker marks, and that was all really. Oh, he also hinged his bandaged arm to make it look normal as well his tattered clothes to something regular citizens wear. Other than that, he just looked like a differently styled Naruto. Maybe he should have put a bit more effort into his henge just to be safe. Too late for that, he supposed. Naruto wasn't the greatest at lying even though he was excellent at pulling pranks. I'm new in town. Oh? Where are you from? Ino asked. Naruto tried to think of the most non-threatening country he knew. A small village in hot water country. I came here looking for work. The conversation had attracted the attention of both Shikamaru, who was previously leaning on the table, sleeping, and Shuji, who had just finished devouring the first round of meat they ordered. Naruto almost winced. Now he had the attention of one of the most inquisitive and intelligent people he knew in the pineapple-haired Nara. Oh my! Is there anything you specialize in? I wouldn't mind asking my mother for some extra hands around her flower shop, Ino said, beaming at him. I appreciate the offer, but I've only been here for a day or so and would like to keep my options open, Naruto responded, choosing to keep his story simple. I worked as a hot springs attendant previously. It wasn't anything special. Oh? Ino smirked. And would your services include personal grooming? She placed her arms beneath her bosom and lifted it slightly to emphasize her assets. She knew what she was doing, and Naruto had seen her do it to sigh enough times before to read between the lines. Naruto blushed. Not in the way you're suggesting, miss. Ah, how rude of me. I'm Yamanaka Ino, Ino introduced, and this lazy bum over here is Naro Shikamaru, and this one is Akimichi Chuji. Naruto smiled. Pleased to meet you all. I'm Yukineru. OSU. Well met. Choji greeted. Would you like to sit and eat with us? My treat. Shikamaru only nodded. Naruto was unsure whether he should take a risk in further interacting with his old friends. Would they recognize him from the Naruto here, if he existed? Would they be able to tell that he was in a henge? Oh, that's a great idea, Choji. Ino enthusiastically added, I insist, come and join us, Naruto-kun. It's nice to be accompanied by someone handsome for a change. The other two boys only rolled their eyes. Naruto had never really considered himself handsome. That title always belonged to Sasuke, though perhaps because he lacked a frame of reference. He was always associated with negative connotations before he became a hero. So he was considered handsome to Ino. That was new. The Ino of his world had a specific type. The type was emo and broody, very dark-haired, pale-skinned, and had a dictionary of mental problems befitting for a Yamanaka to work on. None of which was Naruto mental problems redacted. He was in a henge, but, as he said, it was practically just him, but made plain. Not to say that people with brown eyes and brunette hair can't be beautiful in their own right. Tenten was a prime example, but he always thought that his exotic features were the only redeeming features he had, not his natural looks and facial structure. Apparently that wasn't true from the way that Ino was keeping her eyes glued on him. It was kind of nice to be treated like this for a change, he thought, though it wasn't really important to him. Naruto hesitantly agreed. Sure, I guess. Great. Ino supplied, then gestured to the open seat next to her, come sit over here. Naruto scooched over, moving his eating utensils and informing the waitress that he'd be joining the group. He was nervous. How different would these people be from the people he knew? Would he be able to recognize them? A part of the tight bond he had with each of them before was due to shared experiences, one of the major ones being from Sasuke's retrieval mission. It was something he lacked with them now. He just hoped that he was able to form somewhat of the same connection with them in the future. So you guys are students from the academy, huh? Naruto asked, trying to gauge as much information about the world from them as he could from general conversation. I couldn't help but overhear what you said earlier. That's right. Choji responded enthusiastically. You're looking at the future of Konoha's greatest. Naruto smiled, already recognizing the boisterous Akimichi from the one in his world. I don't doubt that. I'm sure you'll all go on to do great things. All three of them smiled at that, although Shikamaru hid it under the pretense of laziness. Wow. You're a real charmer, huh? Ino smiled. Do you think you want to be a ninja too? I know it's not for everyone, but being a ninja comes with great benefits. She was gesturing to herself, implicating something Naruto missed entirely. I don't know, Naruto replied. I'm unused to the customs here, but from what I've heard from you, you've already graduated from the academy, and you all seem to be my age. If I apply now, it would take me years just to become Genin or Chunin, wouldn't it? It depends, Shikamaru answered while Ino pouted. If you're talented enough, you could just take the graduation exam and pass to become a fully fledged Genin, provided you're over the minimum mandatory graduation age, which is 18 years old. We still have a year left. I see, Naruto said, grateful to gain the information. So the age at which a person can graduate is an enforceable law apparently. Naruto didn't dare ask more about it as he was afraid that he might give his otherworldly nature away. Well, I'll think about whether the ninja life is right for me, Databeo. All froze when he said his infamous verbal tick. Naruto's sweat dropped. Oh crud nuggets, he thought. He was really, really bad at staying inconspicuous. Then, Ino burst out giggling. Oh Kami, that was the cutest tick I'd ever heard. Great. It took me what? 5 minutes to give something away? Naruto thought. He sighed. Choji was also laughing. Shikamaru on the other hand looked at him quizzically. Say you remind me of someone. Naruto couldn't help but gulp. He knew Shikamaru's inquisitive nature. He just hoped that he didn't attract too much attention for him to use too much brain power on figuring out who the new self-claimed foreigner is. Who do I remind you of? Shikamaru contemplated. Then he said something that left Naruto frozen in his seat. The matriarch of the Uzumaki clan, Uzumaki Kushina. She has a similar verbal tic you do. What? Naruto was almost left speechless, but his only response came out before he could catch it. Excuse me? Thankfully, they took it as general confusion because Ino filled in the gaps. Oh, the matriarch of the Uzumaki clan is the last remaining member of her clan. She then thought a bit, trying to dredge up the information about the clan head as she could, before seeming to have done so, nodding to herself. Because of the tragic incident over a decade ago, she lost her husband and her newborn son. To this day, she remains a widow and quite reclusive, though she occasionally attends clan meetings. Mom is alive? Naruto thought. His throat felt dry and he didn't know how to respond to the information. It was like someone had pulled out the carpet from under him, and what lay beneath was just an endless abyss of disbelief. He reined it back in, to the best of his abilities. Mom is alive. You okay? Ino inquired. You look like you've seen a ghost. That snapped Naruto out of his reverie, and he tried to regain his composure. Why, yeah, I'm alright. Then his curious mind wanted to know about how different the Kyuubi disaster was from the one in his world. Would it be too much if I ask you about what that incident over a decade ago was? Oh, sure. Ino enthusiastically responded, but her tone became solemn when she spoke next. It was the single most tragic night in Konoha's history. It was a night where somehow, the nine-tailed fox was released in the middle of the village. The devastation of the event had wiped out over a quarter of Konoha's population and from what I've heard, only lasted for a few seconds. Naruto nodded. He'd heard this story many times before. It was a reminder of his origins. So impactful was the event that almost every citizen of Konoha had a story of loss relating to it. It was why he was hated so much during his childhood. It was thanks to the forced sacrifice that we all still remain to this day. He sealed the fox into himself as well as his son, but in return, they had both tragically passed away. The mood was somber, as Ino retold the story. It was like talking about genocide or war. The event always plagued anything it touched with an oppressive force that lasted for as long as history mentioned its name. That's terrible, Naruto muttered. I'm assuming this Uzumaki matriarch lost some of her people, too? Yes, she was the forced wife, Ino informed. No one knew what happened during the events of her son's birth, but thankfully she survived. Though, even now she remains a shadow of herself, so they say. It was a hard lump for Naruto to swallow. He'd just been told that not only had the Naruto of his world died during the events of his birth, but that his mother survived instead. How different was this world to his own? How much did that one little detail change the course of history? But most importantly, his mother, he could talk to her. Get to know her. It was an opportunity that he never had before. His throat was parched, and no words could explain his emotions. I'm sorry to hear that. It must have been a tragedy to you all. Choji agreed, but it was a long time ago. I wasn't even born during that time, so I don't have that same sense of loss as most people here. But we shouldn't talk of such gloomy subjects on this day of celebration. Naruto chucked at the ever-bright demeanor of the Akimichi. Sorry to bring it up. I was just curious. No worries. Ino interjected. I can only imagine how hard it must be to journey to a new place so foreign from your own. But if you need any help, don't be afraid to come by and ask for it. I'm normally at the Yamanka flower shop in the clan district if you ever hope to find me. She batted her eyelashes at him. Of course, thanks for the offer, Naruto said. Shikamaru and Choji rolled their eyes. That was a suggestion to something distinctly more if they've ever heard one. Good thing their new acquaintance seemed to be a bit dense in these types of passes. From then on they chatted away about inconsequential things, but Naruto was able to pry out a bit more information from the details they'd given. Such as the fact that they hope that they will all be in the same team, meaning that the teams haven't been formed yet. Or that Shikamaru hopes that nothing drastic will happen over their years of service just like it has been for a couple of years, meaning that the events of the past 3 years such as the invasion of Suna hadn't occurred, if it will even happen at all. It was an hour or so before they finished eating and chatting. Naruto left with a smile on his face and a promise to visit Ino in her flower shop sometime soon. She was, oddly, rather friendly with him for some reason, considering the fact that this was the first time they've met in this world. Naruto thought nothing of it, however. He was just glad he made contact with some of his old friends. It gave him some confidence in his uncertainty. A notion that things would work out just fine, even if he had to start over. But the one thing that stuck to his mind, however, was the fact that his mother is alive and well. That she's here in the village. Naruto knew what he needed to do. He had to find her and see her with his own eyes. With Ino, Choji, Shikamaru. Choji said in between bites of his chips, what a nice fellow that guy was. He was so cute. Ino exclaimed, oh, his features were so delicate. Both handsome and adorable, at the same time. She licked her lips and both Shikamaru and Choji shivered. They knew what she was like when she got like this. They'd seen it happen with the Uchiha in their class before. To their relief, Ino had grown out of it after hitting puberty, and a rather rude interaction between the two caused her to burn whatever remnants of a crush she had for him. Now that she'd found a new target, one that was far less broody to their relief. However, both could only feel sorry for the hot spring boy. Still, Shikamaru said there was something off about him. I don't know what though. You say that to everybody you meet for the first time, Choji said as he grabbed another handful of chips and stuffed them in his face. Not everyone has a mysterious backstory for you to figure out, Shikamaru. Shikamaru shrugged. You're probably right. Besides, it would be a drag to use my mental energy on things that have no consequence. Don't you dare scare him away with your antics, Shikamaru, Ino scowled, he's going to think we're a weird bunch. Trust me, the only one who was acting weird was you, Shikamaru snide. What was that? The tone in Ino's voice suggested immediate retribution. Nothing, Shikamaru immediately backstepped. I thought so. Now, if I'm the matriarch of a clan, where exactly would I be? He hadn't a clue. He'd never been able to interact much with the clad heads of his time, so he didn't know where they'd likely be on a day-to-day basis. He suspected that they were in their clan compounds, doing their various administrative duties for their clans. The only thing was that he hadn't asked the Team 10 trio where he could find the Uzumaki residence, thinking it too intrusive and suspicious of a question. So he was doing nothing other than a bit of exploring, as well as checking that everything was where he remembered it should be geographically. So far, other than the fact that his former apartment was turned into a red light district, nothing too drastic has changed from previous memory. Perhaps there were slight inconsistencies here and there, but he could barely tell between the Konoha now and the one that was in his memories years ago, when it was still intact. Then again, there were some parts of Konoha that he had never frequented as often. Take the clan district, for example. Every time he set foot here when he was young, he was immediately escorted out by one of the associate members. Most of the time, forcefully. With scowls on their faces and threats of punishment should he ever show his face there again. During his days as a hero, it was like they couldn't help but invite him back every time they saw him. Naruto didn't blame them. Such was the nature of his existence. Thus, his current exploration now gave him new discoveries. Like the fact that the Nara compound had a ginormous backyard, leading all the way to a forest that was filled with deer of all things. Naruto wasn't sure if it was just a coincidence that their namesake happened to be related to the animal, or whether it was the other way around, but he couldn't deny the appeal in taking care of the majestic creatures. He also discovered the fact that the Uchiha compound was as empty as a ghost town. Naruto remembered that back in the day, the Uchiha compound was located in the outskirts of the village due to their policing duties. Was their clan compound location different in this world, or was it just something that came out of the Uchiha clan massacre? Sasuke had moved to his own apartment, so Naruto had never noticed. Regardless, that wasn't really what his mission entailed, so he paid it no mind. Using multiple shadow clones, he scouted many sections of the village at the same time. All of them had one thing in mind: look for bright red hair like he remembered from the vision of his mom all those months ago. He wasn't even sure whether she did have red hair in this world, but from how similar the Team 10 trio looked to their counterparts, along with Tucci and Ayam, he had high hopes that he wasn't wrong. So, he searched for that particular feature. It would be easy to find her in a crowd, and should one of his clones find her, they were expected to make another copy of themselves and have one of them pop whilst the other continued to track her. You know, standard shadow clone scouting procedure. Even without Kurama's chakra, Naruto had far more than enough to create hundreds if not thousands. Though, he dialed it back in case having too many increased the chance of being detected. Suddenly, as he was perched on top of the Hokage monument overlooking the village, he felt the rush of memory as one of his clones popped, though it wasn't what he expected to see. Instead of red hair and pale violet eyes, he saw an image of a young teenage girl at one of the training grounds practicing by herself. She had silky, dark blue hair that went down to the small of her back, pale pupilless eyes and soft, creamy skin. It was none other than Hyuga Hinata, the heir to the Hyugan clan. What Naruto saw from his memories that was noted important enough for the clone to pop was the fact that she looked distraught in her training. She had an expression of anger, frustration, and a combination of other negative emotions that he knew all too well. Disappointment, sorrow, bitterness. Naruto made his way there. This was far too important to ignore. One of his friends was in distress, and he'd be ashamed of himself if he did nothing to help her. It didn't take long for him to reach the preconceived destination. It was at one of the many unmarked training grounds open for anyone to visit. A small pond formed from the Naka River adorned its edge to the side. Hinata was doing her best to turn that log in front of her into wood chips as she was pummeling it with fierce juken strikes. He wasn't too sure about how to approach the girl. He wasn't as close as he'd like to be with her. During the tumultuous years prior, she'd confessed that she'd liked him during his battle with pain. It was something that came out of left field at the time, and he didn't know what exactly she saw in him. He would have liked to find out if it were not for his constantly busy schedule during that volatile period. He felt that the chance had slipped through his fingers back in his old world. Now, he finally had the opportunity and the time to get to know her. He decided to introduce himself just as he always had, straightforwardly. "Hey there!" he called out. "Eep!" Hinata cried, not expecting anyone to be there. She must have been incredibly distracted by her training because Hyuga's always had an elite sense of awareness. Now that he thought about it, he didn't see her train with her Byakugan activated. Perhaps she was just venting her frustrations rather than thinking of having a quality training session. She was crying, he saw, and it made him beyond angry at whatever could have done this to her. Then Naruto also realized that Byakugans could likely see through henges. Naruto internally swore, having not thought that far ahead. Now, he just hoped that Hinata would follow the Hyuga etiquette and not activate her Byakugan when interacting with someone outside of combat situations. Thankfully, she'd done exactly that. Who are you?" she asked, voice quivering with both suspicion and exhaustion. Naruto waved his hand at her, swallowing his nervousness. "Yo! I'm new in town. The name's Yukineru Databayo," he replied enthusiastically. Even from his limited time interacting with her, she'd always been kind to him, especially during his childhood years. "I was just walking around exploring the village, and saw that you seemed quite distressed over here, so I decided to step in." Oh, Hinata said, making an effort to clean up her tears with her sleeves. "How unseemly of me." After a moment to regain her composure, she straightened up and introduced herself. "I'm Hyuga Hinata. It's nice to meet you." Naruto smiled. "It's nice to meet you too, Databayo." He cringed as the tick slipped out again, almost redundantly, but at this point, he might as well give up on suppressing it. Curse his habit of speaking like someone from the countryside. Hinata gave a soft smile that didn't particularly reach her ears. "Well, forgive the impression I gave off, but I'm doing just fine, I assure you. I was just a bit frustrated and wanted to vent out my anger." She gestured to the training log. Naruto nodded in understanding. "I get you. I do that a lot as well, say, I know we just met and all, but I wouldn't mind lending an ear if you want to air your grievances. Take it from me, it's sometimes freeing to get things off your chest to someone who's completely impartial to the whole thing." Hinata hesitated. She wasn't sure why exactly this stranger approached her, nor did she trust him, but she'd been through so much in her life with no form of support that she was actually rather desperate. So her reluctance didn't really last too long at all. "I guess." Before she could change her mind with her timid nature, Naruto interjected. "Great," he said, making his way over there in a flash. Hinata was surprised by the enthusiasm he showed. Perhaps it was because he wanted to get to know new people in a foreign place that he was willing to go to such lengths to talk to her. She didn't know. Yet, she sort of appreciated the act of kindness and the attention that was so rarely given to her. All right," Hinata muttered. Naruto walked over to the field of grass and gestured beside him for her to sit. She blushed a bit before taking up the spot, and used to speaking with boys. "So? What's bothering you, Hyuga-san?" Naruto inquired, playing it cool, though he was excited over this opportunity to speak with her. "Well, I don't really know where to start," Hinata responded. "Start with anything you want." Sure," she said before taking a moment to contemplate. "Well, how much do you know about the Hyuga clan?" "Not much at all, really," Naruto responded. He wasn't lying. He truly didn't know much other than the fact that they had branded their branch members from his fight against Niji years ago. You'd think that information in particular would suggest that he knew more about the Hyugas than others, but he truly didn't. He didn't know their customs, their traditions, their beliefs, their values. "Like I said, I'm new here." "Well, the Hyuga clan is made up of two houses. The main house and the branch house. I'm part of the main house, the ruling house of the clan, whereas my cousin is part of the branch house, which supports and serves the main house," she said. "We occasionally have spars and it's just so frustrating." "How so?" Naruto asked. Well, they all know how much better my cousin is than me, and they keep acting all surprised when a member of the main house loses, even though they've seen it happen 1,000 times before, she said, an expression of frustration showing on her face. It's humiliating. I wish they would all just go away and leave me alone. Naruto had never seen this side of Hinata before. She'd always been so shy around him. It was refreshing in a sense to be able to have her confide in him without holding anything back. He never knew that she could be even slightly vindictive. That's not even the worst of it, she continued, shaking her head. They always pit me against my twin sister, and she always wins. I love her, but it just makes me feel so useless. Twins? Yet another thing that's different in this world. Hinata and Hanabi are twins. Weird. She emphasized the word useless like it was etched into her very soul. A word that she thought described her existence. Then, as if just reminded that she was saying all this to a stranger, she blushed and palmed her face. I'm sorry, I must sound like a basket case. Naruto shook his head, denying her worries, and gave her an understanding smile. Trust me, compared to the problems I've been confided in over the years, yours sounded pretty tame, Naruto said, smiling. I'm glad you told me all this. All right, Hinata responded, still embarrassed at dumping all her problems on him. With the sense of being back in the current moment, she felt like she wanted to curl up into a ball and let the earth swallow her whole. All these years, she had trouble making friends due to her low self-esteem, and here came an opportunity that was dropped on her lap, perhaps by luck, chance, fate, or even the heavens above. And what had she done? She probably made him think she was a person who was far too loaded with problems to be friends with, which in all fairness, was probably not a terrible assessment. Oh, Cammy. He must think I'm definitely not worth the trouble. He must have regretted coming over and talking to me. Why did I have to come out and immediately spill all my little problems? Hey, Naruto called, pulling her out of her internal monologue. You don't have to be ashamed of confiding in me with this, Databeo. Remember that this is what I asked for. You probably didn't expect me to start off by dumping my problems all at once, did you? She muttered, especially since we don't even know each other very well. To her surprise, that made him laugh. I like cutting right to the thick of it. It's honestly fine. He then thought over his next words. You know, I've had problems similar to yours as well. Hinata arched her eyebrows in surprise. Really? Yeah, Naruto said somberly, looking to the distance. I had a friend once. I compared myself to him all the time. In my village, he was always the center of attention, which was something I never had. I was jealous, in some ways, because I always came up short when competing against him, whether it was through exams or tests or, like in your experience, spars. Naruto chewed on his lips, thinking back to his memories, unaware that he had the complete attention of Hinata, who was staring at him like she'd found a kindred soul. What I found that helped me was to stop setting him as a benchmark to compare myself to. To not let the expectations of others get to me. I focused on improving by comparing myself to how I was the day before rather than where everyone else is, and as time passed I'd surpassed him. He turned towards Hinata and was surprised by how intensely she was staring at him. For her part, it seemed that she was completely unaware of it, so absorbed she was by his story. And what happened to him? With that, Naruto's eyes dimmed. He grew bitter and angry. He fell to the wrong path, and I couldn't save him. Bitterness and sorrow accompanied Naruto's words, so fresh the memory was of his friend's death. He was corrupted by the will of another, and slowly but surely, he became less of the friend I knew and more of a monster. Naruto no longer held any illusions that Sasuke was a good person. He was too blinded by vengeance, and was capable of destroying the lives of any who stood in his path, and he did, without remorse. Hinata gulped at those words, but to Naruto's surprise, she reached her hand out to grasp his own. Thank you for sharing your experience with me. I can see that you are distraught from your memories, and I just want to say that you shouldn't have to carry that burden. Sometimes our influence over our friends' choices weighs less than we think. He chose whatever path he walked from his own judgment. You shouldn't carry the burden of his wrongdoings. Naruto looked at her stunned. From just a few sentences she knew about his story, she spoke words that she had no idea how much they meant to him. Every time he had closed his eyes, he could see Sasuke's desecrated corpse as Sakura had finished him off. He kept seeing what his friend had become, always thinking what he could have done to stop it. Yet here he was, with a person so kind-hearted and insightful that she'd guessed the root of his problems, and told him something that he needed to hear. She was just like the Hinata he remembered, though she stuttered a lot less now than what he remembered from their limited interactions, as in, every 2 or 3 words. He couldn't help but let out a sudden laugh, before he chuckled to himself in disbelief. Upon realizing what she'd done, Hinata blushed and drew her hand back. Was that too much? She reeled. I'm sorry. Don't, Naruto interrupted. You have nothing to apologize for. I really need to hear that. More than you'd ever know. Thank you? Hinata blushed, becoming flustered. Of course. Thank you for coming over to speak to me. I feel much better now. Naruto beamed at her. Hey, you scratch my back and I scratch yours, right? Then we'll both be stronger together. Right. Upon seeing the end of the brief problems, confiding session, Naruto decided to take a leap of faith. Say you want to be friends? Hinata's jaw fell open, almost as if she'd heard the most ridiculous thing coming out of his mouth. Why, you want to be friends with me? Well, we sort of just shared a bit of ourselves with each other, hadn't we? Naruto said. I think that's enough grounds for a budding friendship, don't ya think? Hinata's face became so flushed that she could almost qualify as doing a human impersonation of a tomato. I would like that, she said. Then, she jumped up almost as she was jolted into action, almost like she was fleeing from imminent death. I just thought of something I had to do. I gotta Genosobi. And with that, she was off. Naruto just looked on, astonished at her disappearing form over the distance. How had she managed to run away so quickly? Guess she's faster than she realizes. Then, as if designed by fate, a shadow clone popped, informing him with the visage of his target. There she was with all her glory. Mom. Naruto had found her. She was grocery shopping? He'd observed from afar for now, perched on the rooftops on one of the adjacent buildings. He didn't know how to feel about the situation he found himself in. First a new world and now someone who's supposed to be dead was alive. That someone being his mother, a person who he wished he had gotten to know since forever. What was she like? Did she care for him? Naruto had to remind himself that to her, he was dead. Yet he wasn't anymore. He also wasn't even the Naruto she knew. What would she say if he met her? Naruto's heart was pounding in his chest. His ears were ringing. He felt like he was at war again, waiting for the next battle, preparing for the next assault. But this was just his mom. Was she even his mom? Or was she just the mother of this world's version of him? Naruto snapped out of his musings when she started moving again. She went from stall to stall, purchasing basic necessities. He'd watched her every movement, trying to memorize every detail he could of her. He felt like he was in a dream. That this moment was finite, and would be taken away from him the moment he began to hope. Just as everything had been. From his dreams of becoming Hokage to his promise to bring Sasuke home to his crush on Sakura. Now. Could he dare hope once more? He clutched at his necklace. A precious gift from Lady Tsunade. She had been as close of a mother figure he had in his life. She had entrusted this necklace to him, to hope one last time. If she had not fallen during the war, would she be disappointed that he wasn't able to become Hokage back in his old world? Naruto sighed. He knew what he had to do. He just wasn't brave enough to do it. He could face down the entirety of the Akatsuki. Face down Madara. Face down even a goddess. But his mother or sort of mother? It was something that truly intimidated him. Well, here goes nothing. Naruto was ready, he just needed to figure out how, exactly, he was going to introduce himself. Hi, I'm Naruto, but not the Naruto you know because he's dead, or at least that's what I've heard, but a different Naruto from another world entirely that's sort of similar to this world but not really. Anyways, I didn't really have a mother in that world but saw you in my mindscape after trying to unseal Kurama, and now I'm here in this world, and you're alive and I'm alive, and I thought it would be a great idea to get to know each other. He would sound like a nutcase who was henged as her son. Did he even want to introduce himself as her son? That would be terribly strange for both him and her. What if she didn't accept him? Should he just stay as Yuki Nara forever, wearing a mask he carved for himself since day one? No. He was not that type. He was overcomplicating this. He was just going to introduce himself like a normal person and then slowly introduce the idea to her, without overwhelming her with mind-blowing information that's, frankly, not quite believable, even to him at this point. Naruto went back to observing her. She seemed to be done with visiting stalls and was now on her way home. She showed no signs of detecting him, but that was already a surety with his skill in stealth. If he could hide from the Umbu as a 12-year-old wearing a bright orange jacket, he could hide from practically everybody. That wasn't arrogance talking, but experience. Speaking of orange outfits, perhaps it was time to say goodbye to what he's currently wearing sooner or later. His henge had also covered his clothing and changed it to regular civilian wear. Underneath it, however, was the same old jacket he wore since he returned from his 3-year trip with Jiraiya. Only now, it was cut up and in rags due to the war and his fight with Sasuke. With all it's been through, he was surprised that the clothes were still even on him. He made a note to get a fresh set of outfits later on. Maybe an orange t-shirt this time, or even orange tiger-striped pants. Or an orange blazer and an orange eye patch perhaps? Or he could pull a Kakashi and just cover his Rinnegan eye with his headband, of which since his arrival here, he had removed and stored it safely within the storage scroll in his pouch. He'd rather not henge over it in case if the henge fails, he would be caught as a civilian illegally practicing ninja techniques, which happens occasionally from overeager civilians, rather than suspected as a spy from an enemy nation and get sent to TNI. Kushina had made her way to the clan district. He had seen some compounds here through his clones that he didn't recognize and were unidentifiable as they had no signs or symbols displayed on their walls. Perhaps she'd lived in one of those? It took a few minutes of tailing her, but she eventually made her way to a rather humble home opposite of the Nara clan. It was a 2-story building with a wooden roof and had a sort of stacked cylindrical shape with a rectangular area protruding from the side. It was in a word cozy. Something that perhaps he would one day build himself had been in his old world. Kushina entered the house and now, Naruto was truly left with 2 options. Enter the house now, and get it over with, or come back later and do it then. He walked towards the door. When he arrived at the footsteps leading to it, he stopped, thought about it, then turned back to the gate entrance, thinking it was a terrible idea. Then, he stopped at the gate entrance, then turned around to walk back to the door, thinking that he was no coward. Then he turned back to the gate, then to the door, then to the gate, the door, the gate, the door. This lasted for 10 minutes. Then, on his final trip to the door, he was just about to turn away from it again for the last time and call it a day, thinking that perhaps he could allow himself to be cowardly just this one time and bail once and for all, before the door opened and a glowing golden chain shot out, wrapping itself around his right foot and dragged him in with a force too strong for his startled self to resist. Gah! He shrieked as he was catapulted inwards. His backside smacked against the wall and left him almost boneless on the ground from the shock and sudden change in momentum. The chains then proceeded to turn him into a human sushi roll. Yoch! Ow, good Kami, that hurts more than Sasuke's Chidori to the chest, he choked before looking up to find the unimpressed stare of his sort of mother. Mage High? Naruto hesitantly greeted. Why have you been following me? Kushina asked, her voice flat, completely unimpressed with the state of her stalker. Naruto took a look at her before he answered. Now that she was there, right in front of him, he could see the details of her visage that he hadn't before. At whatever age she was now, she was still as beautiful as his vision of her was portrayed to him was. She had vibrant, crimson hair, and unblemished porcelain skin. Her violet eyes looked like they contained thousands of stories untold, yet it was dim and pained, almost as if covered with a gown of despair. She was suffering, he realized. He could see it in her posture, the rings under her eyes. Yet she was alive. Whatever Naruto wanted to say was stuck in his throat. Don't even try to lie your way out of this, boy, she said sternly. We Uzumaki's are censors, and I've sensed you watching me ever since I went into that fruit store down in the civilian district. Naruto could only stare at her as she scolded him, mesmerized. He was no sucker for pain, despite his experiences with Sakura, but the very act of his mother scolding him was so unfamiliar of an experience that it made him wondrous rather than scared. Kushina tapped her feet impatiently. It's been a long time that anyone would have enough interest in me to send an assassin. Not an assassin, Naruto interjected, before practically swallowing his tongue at how terrible an idea to interrupt her. Kushina's eyes narrowed and she promptly smacked him on his forehead. Oh! He yelped, incredulous. Don't interrupt me, you're the one who's being interrogated here, she scolded once more. Why yes ma'am, Naruto said, leaning away from her irritated expression, though only to partial success as his bindings held him tight. He figured that if he wanted to he could try to break out of this, but that would probably leave a terrible impression on his MO, on Kushina. He decided to just call her Kushina for now. Like I was saying before you rudely interrupted, even if you weren't an assassin, that would imply that you're a creep who likes spying on old widowed women. Either way, it's not looking too great for you. So talk. Naruto tried to formulate the words, but it took a while for his brain to process the situation he found himself in. Kushina's foot tapping increased in cadence. I met someone who told me I sort of looked like you, so I decided to check if it's true, Naruto said, sticking to the bullshit route. So instead of coming up to say hello, you stalked me until I got home? Kushina deadpanned, unconvinced. Naruto winced. Right, it looks bad, but, hey. What are you doing? In the middle of his sentence, Kushina reached out and grabbed his cheeks, smushing them together and turning his face left and right, examining his features. Wait a second, she muttered before her eyes went wide in realization. You have a henge on you. Naruto gaped. How did you? I'm an Uzumaki, she interrupted before he could finish, stating it such that it was almost obvious that she could detect henges. I could never do that, he mumbled. What was that? And nothing, he smiled guiltily. Drop the henge, she insisted, smushing his face even harder with her right hand. Wait, you don't understand, Naruto tried. Drop it, or I'll make you drop it and turn you over to TNI, Kushina commanded. Alright, Naruto said, then he substituted with his clone that was perched on top of the building. Or at least he tried to. For some weird reason, he felt as if the chains had blocked his chakra from doing what it was supposed to, almost like a suppressor. Kushina smirked. Nice try, but that won't work. Naruto snapped his head to the window behind her and shouted now. Kushina turned her head around, fully expecting to face another foe. Yet two things she absolutely didn't expect to happen, happened. First of all, there was no other attacker. Classic trick that she shouldn't have ever fallen for, but give her a break, she was a long time retired. Second of all, the chains that she so proudly conjured and perfected over decades to hold down even bijus were pried off the young man by his very fingers. He'd somehow made enough of a gap to squeeze himself out, and in the blink of an eye, he was free. Sorigata no bai, he said before scrambling off, much like the move Hinata pulled earlier in the day. Oh no you don't, Kushina thought. Just as Naruto tasted freedom as he bolted to the door, he grabbed the handle and then proceeded to slam face first into it when it didn't open. With the momentum he was going, the door should have at least been unhinged or more likely destroyed, rather than stop him outright. Before he could regain his bearings, he found himself back in the chain sushi roll and hung upside down this time. Ever heard of Fuinjutsu, boy? Kushina snickered, you should try it sometime. Drats, Naruto muttered. His final bailout plan down in flames, buried in ruins. Granted, he could have tried a lot harder in his attempt, but again, he'd never want to potentially do anything to hurt his mother or worse, make her have a terrible opinion of him, and thereby never wanting to talk to him again. That's some strength you got there, she commented. You've just informed me that you're a real threat, despite your age. What does my age have to do with any of this? Naruto asked. Blood was rushing to his head now, both from being upside down and being squeezed by the chains. With the definitely more than single layer of chains she was putting on him now, she was taking no risks in him escaping again. Kushina raised a delicate eyebrow. Every shinobi nowadays only starts their career at 18 or above. It's from the Kage Summit Ethics Pact. Any less would be barbaric. Everyone knows that. She looked at him. Are you one of Danzo's? Kushina asked. No, Naruto said, making a face. Kushina hummed, don't you think it's about time you dropped your henge now, mister? I'm going to call the shinobi patrols. Wait, just let me explain. Naruto scrambled, I wanted to ease you into it. Nope. You have one chance. Unhenge in 3 seconds or it's to TNI you go, Mr. Stalker. But... 3. Hold on a minute. 2. Alright. Naruto unhinged, closing his left eye so his Rinnegan would remain a secret for just a bit longer. And Kushina dropped him on his head out of shock, releasing him from the chains. Ow! Naruto yelped, rubbing the point of impact on his head. Damn it, I mean, Kushina-san. You're going to give me permanent head damage. Kushina's brow furrowed, her shock still present. What was that you were about to call me? And nothing? Naruto stuttered immediately, taking back his slip in words. Are you a relative of Minato's? Kushina asked, approaching him slowly, eyeing him as if he was an endangered animal. Naruto crawled backwards until his back was at the door. Well, sort of, yes. You look very much like my late husband, she said, as she stopped right in front of him to peer at his, now, unhinged face. Then, her eyes widened as she saw the marks on his cheeks. She paled considerably, a thought so impossible flashed into her mind. And no. It can't be, she said, voice shaking. Naruto could say nothing as he felt the caress of her palm and fingers when she ran them down his cheek, feeling the small whisker-like indents. Her eyes became glassy, yet still wide in disbelief, almost like she was seeing a ghost. Why you? Why you're… Naruto was taken aback by how much of a 180 her reaction to him was from but a moment ago. Her guard had dropped ever since he revealed himself. It was as if he immediately turned from being an unknown threat to being a potential relative the moment she saw his blonde hair and blue eyes. Hi, Naruto said, we got off on the wrong foot, didn't we? Which is mainly my fault, but… Kushina fainted. Naruto shouted, catching her limp self as if she was a puppet with her strings cut. Kushina-san? He stared at her unconscious form in his arms. She was still breathing, thank Kami, but it seemed that his appearance had scared the life out of her. It could have gone worse, I suppose. Kushina was out for 15 minutes, and Naruto was about to step into the worry stage before she woke up. He checked on her condition so he was sure that she wasn't in any danger. He'd seen many people have the same reaction to things they simply couldn't comprehend during the war. Still though, she was his sort of mother. He was worried that the Kushina of this world had some rare condition that he had no idea about. Maybe she faints often and needs to be hospitalized immediately. Is she truly just cold out? Or is she in need of immediate help and every minute he delayed, she could potentially be in worse and worse danger? As the questions and doubts bounced around in his head, he heard, to his relief, the sounds of awakening from his mom where she laid on the couch. First there was a deep inhale, then her eyes snapped open. She didn't seem to have spotted him yet. Then she yawned. That was a strange dream, she muttered. Naruto opened his mouth to object but had decided to see how she'd react first. Her eyes took in her surroundings, initially bouncing over him as if he was a random household object. Then she did a double take as her eyes shot back to him. She stared at him, bewildered. He stared back at her, apologetically. Yee! She screeched, almost falling off the coach. Hi. Naruto responded. This must have been the third or fourth time he said hi to her now in this single interaction. Why, you're real? Well, yes, I'd like to believe it, he said, pinching his own cheek to check. Seems pretty real, Databeo. Kushina just stared at him like he was a rabid animal she found in her backyard and didn't know what to do with it. Then the gears clicked in her head once more. Databeo? Kushina mocked, her voice shaking and a half-chuckle of disbelief escaped from her. Naruto blushed a bit. His last meeting with his mother in his mindscape had engendered the same reaction when his tick came out. How is this possible? She said, getting up and approaching him once again, arms shaking. It's a long story, Naruto said, staring at her as she came closer. She was cautious, as if rushing to him could scare him off or destroy the illusion that she thought her mind and conjured up. But he was real as anything ever was. So he took a step towards her in return. Her breathing hitched, as if she didn't expect him to do so. Are you Naruto? My son? Kushina let out, finally asking the question that brought out the hope she buried so long ago. I am, but not in the way you think, Naruto admitted, trying not to give her false pretenses. What do you mean? Kushina asked, finally within an arm's reach of him and stopping to stare wondrously at his face. You're so handsome. Naruto blushed. Thanks, Mo, Kushina-san. Though I'm guessing you have a bias towards blonde-haired and blue-eyed men. Kushina let out a delighted giggle, feeling the knot in her stomach start to unravel itself with the subtle timbre of his voice. It was so uniquely familiar, as if it was what she'd imagined exactly what her son would sound like had he grown up. She did not want to wake from this illusion, this strange conjuration of her thoughts. Well, you're probably right about that. But you have my cheeks, my cheekbones even, my forehead, my nose, and everything else is Minato's. But your eye, why are you covering it? When she was unconscious, Naruto had the opportunity to grab his headband from his storage scroll and cover it over his eye, doing what his sensei normally did. Despite himself now, he only needed a mask to truly look alike. He traced his finger above the headband where his transplanted, No, apparently not just transplanted, according to Hagoromo, his other eye was. Kushina gasped and grabbed his arm, his bandaged, cloth-wrapped arm that he used to do so. Kami, what happened to you? Then, as if seeing a ghost and having reality catch up to her, she stepped away from him. Truly afraid that what she saw in front of her wasn't real, that she had been trapped in a cruel genjutsu for some odd reason. I buried you. I saw you take your last breath. You died in my arms. Naruto gulped, seeing the grief on her face, the distraught expression she had. It was like seeing a dead person come back to life, something he wished he didn't have experience with, and something he and no doubt she knew about. Damned Edo Tensei. I am Naruto Uzumaki, but not your Naruto Uzumaki. I'm from a different world, an alternate world, he said. So much for taking it slow. Kushina was unsurprisingly confused. Her crimson eyebrows arched together, and a question in her eyes. It's a long story, Naruto informed. Kushina took a moment to gather herself, exploring the options she had. Then she snapped her violet eyes back to him, almost as if she was searching for something within his gaze. Whatever it was, she seemed to have found it as her posture relaxed, and she took a shaky breath. I have time. Naruto was debating whether he should tell her at all. The full truth of his existence here. It was much to bear, much that rests on his shoulders. Could he trust her? He gazed at her eyes in return, searching for his own sake. And what he saw was uncertainty, nervousness, and hope. She hoped that what she saw in front of her was without a doubt real. She hoped that he was who she thought he was. He didn't want to disappoint her by beating around the bush. If she of all people is untrustworthy, his own mother, then who was he to trust in this world? Sakura? She didn't know him, even if he knew her. Who knows how different she was from the girl he knew? No. He had a choice now. A leap of faith. Should he take it? He kept his gaze on her and saw a spark of something that he could identify whenever he visited a friend's house later in his career. The way a mother looked at their sons and daughters. Love. Pride. He took that leap of faith. Well, we might as well sit down, shall we? He chuckled, and saw the relief in Kushina's eyes. It's, I'll warn you, a tall tale. A very, very unbelievable tale. Would you indulge me, no matter how crazy it seems? Kushina nodded rapidly. Oh, of course. Then Naruto looked around, scanning his surroundings. Is this place private? I don't want anyone to hear what I'm about to tell you. Kushina made a hand sign, and Naruto saw some few ninjutsu scripts light up that were attached to the corner of the walls. None can hear, see, or even smell anything that happens within these walls now. I stake my life on it, Kushina assured. Naruto smiled. You don't have to go that far. I'd rather have all my secrets be told than have you absent from my life again. Your life is worth far more than anything I have to offer. Kushina's eyes became slightly teary at that, but she only nodded. Naruto gave her a bitter smile and sat down on the old, rugged couch as she went and sat on the larger sofa beside it. Where to start? So, from noon till night. Naruto spoke of his journey, from beginning to end. Some parts he skimmed over. Some, he told in excruciating detail. He told her of his origins, his orphan status. How he grew up in an orphanage before moving into an apartment by himself, given to him by the third Hokage. He told her of his journey to being a ninja, of Iruka-sensei, as his many battles against his adversaries. Sasuke, Gaara, Neji, Orochimaru, the Akatsuki, Pain, Madara, Kagaya, and Sasuke once more. He told her of his friends. Team 7, Team 8, Team 10 guys team. He told her of his crush on his teammate, of the crush another had on him, the very person he'd met today. He told her of everything. He took his own advice he gave to Hinata. He spoke his thoughts to another soul, laying his heart out. He confided in the person whom he hoped to trust beyond anyone he ever had in his life. Was he stupid in doing so? He didn't know her. Even if she was his mother. Or a version of her. But he wanted to do this. To take this chance? To have hope. Throughout it all, Kushina, though initially confused, seemed to pick up on the clues and details of his story. She sympathized at parts, was surprised at parts, was in disbelief at parts, and the range of emotions bounced back and forth as Naruto continued his tale. She was a great listener, engaged and sometimes asking questions about the specifics. He told her of how he ended up here. Of his final fight with Sasuke. Of his transplanted eye, of which he lifted his headband to show her, much to her shock. He told of his friendship and separation with Kurama and his subsequent meeting with Hagoromo. In the end, she could do nothing other than gape at him. I know, he said, it's hard to believe. I believe you, Kushina immediately interrupted, trying to clear any misunderstandings her son may have. What? Naruto looked at her. I don't care if you think that your tale is outlandish literally, but don't you see, Naruto, she stuttered at his name, almost in disbelief that she was actually addressing him with the name of her dead son. I choose to believe because in the end, there's too big of a chance for me to simply let go. Her voice broke when she said the next words, her eyes locked onto his own and tearing up once more. I have the chance to get to know him, my son. Then she cried. It was as if throughout the hours he'd spent telling her of his story, she'd been slowly and surely convinced that he was well, Naruto, and had been holding back a torrent of emotions that struggled to break free. Now that he was done, now that she had confirmed who he was, she broke down in sobs. Naruto scrambled towards her and placed a hand on her shoulder. Kushina. Please, she interjected, voice pleading and quivering, call me mom. Mom, Naruto agreed, heavy emotions lacing his tone on what that word meant to him. He finally had a family now. A real family. Mom, are you alright? No, she said, I'm better than alright. I'm so happy. So incredibly happy that I can't even explain it. So happy that I can't believe this is truly happening. This is truly real. You're my son. She rubbed her eyes before looking at him. They were bloodshot and glassy, still streaked with tears. You might not be mine in this world, but you're still Naruto Uzumaki, born from a version of Kushina Uzumaki. You're as close to a son I can ever have, and you're here. Her eyes bounced back and forth between his own, between the faded purple and crystal blue. Naruto was also holding back his own dam of emotions. She choked. Would you give your mother a hug, Naruto? With that, the dam could hold no longer. He hugged her, letting out his own sobs, his own cries of relief. She hugged him back, almost crushingly, as if holding on to a lifeline. Oh, my sweet boy, welcome home. And thus, mother and son were reunited once more. They held onto each other for what felt like hours but was actually only a few minutes. They would have embraced for longer, had Naruto's stomach not interrupted. Grullo. Naruto blushed. Sorry. To his embarrassment, Kushina giggled. They let go of each other, and Kushina's smile could have melted him on the spot. She seemed so joyful, so full of life. It was like something had been lifted off her shoulders, so far removed to how she looked before. Let me make dinner for you, son. Kushina seemed to still be surprised at the title she gave him. Surprised that this was even real to her. Let's make dinner together, Mom, Naruto corrected. Her voice hitched in her reply. She looked like she was going to burst out crying again but managed to hold herself together. Alright. They set out to organize the groceries that Kushina had bought earlier. It was mainly just fruits and vegetables. What would you like to eat? Kushina asked, coming beside him. Honestly, anything is fine, Naruto said. I ate yakiniku for breakfast this morning, met some of my old friends in the meantime. Naruto looked melancholy thinking back to this morning's talk. What a day it's been, he said, but then he felt Kushina placing her hand in his and giving it a squeeze. You know that no matter what I'll be here for you, right? Kushina said sternly. Naruto was surprised that she would give him her trust so easily, that he believed in him so much already, despite literally meeting each other today. Thanks, Mom. They gave each other a timid smile, both unsure about how to interact with one another. Say, Naruto asked, do you have any ramen, Mom? For some reason, that was the thing that made her tear up once more. Yeah? What happened? What did I say? Naruto panicked. Why, you take so much after me, she said, sniffing, even though I haven't been in your life until now. You're so much like me. From your tick to loving ramen? Oh, Kami, I'm getting emotional again. Naruto gasped. Why, you love ramen too? Yes. She agreed enthusiastically. Why, you truly are my mom, Naruto muttered. They both looked at each other. Then they burst out laughing. Naruto had headed back to the inn he was staying in to check out and grab his things after dinner. His mother, he was still getting used to calling her that, insisted that he move in with her immediately. Naruto hadn't mentioned it before, but the state of his mother's house was sort of, to politely put it, a mess. It was a mess. Kushina had been embarrassed when he'd subtly pointed it out, stating that she never really had visitors for a long time. Naruto hadn't minded it at all, but left a few clones to help her tidy up before he got back. He really needed the walk, the fresh air, to gather his thoughts on what just happened. He was incredibly lucky that his mother was exactly who he thought she was. This world's version of her wasn't evil or hateful, or cold, or anything negative. She was as kind and loving as he thought she was from his encounter with her in his mindscape. In fact, she was almost too eager to jump in the boat he was sailing in, uncaring of whether it would sink and drown them both, or even where he was going. It was like the moment she saw that she could have her son back in her life as a possibility. No matter how slim it was, she took it by its reins and went to the deep end with it. He appreciated her for it. More than she realized. To have someone he could potentially rely on in this tumultuous time. He'd put his hinge back on, covering his clothes and all, though his mother had also promised to go shopping with him tomorrow to sort out his wardrobe situation. Honestly, he was sort of excited to spend time with her. He was excited to learn what she liked, what she disliked, what she absolutely adored and hated. He was excited to learn everything. He hadn't been this happy for a long time. Even if he'd lost all his friends, or rather they all lost him, he was glad for the opportunity to start over. He could remake his friends, reforge the bonds he had with them, but one thing he couldn't do was bring his mother back to life. Not with what it would cost him. So this chance to even have a mother who was alive and well, he was grateful beyond belief. Naruto looked up at the starry sky. The sun had already set. He'd never felt so alive. So free. When he made it to the inn, a smile was permanently etched on his face. He checked out with the clerk, grabbed his things, and made his way home. Home. Naruto awoke just an hour after he fell asleep to the sound of the floorboard creaking. It was his mother. She was in a silk nightdress and was holding a lamp light. Naruto rubbed his eyes. Mom? What is it? Sorry, son. I just wanted to check that you were okay. Kushina had caught herself from saying that she wanted to check that he was actually real once more. She would sound like a broken record. I'm doing alright, Mom, Naruto yawned. I'm so tired I could sleep on the floor and snooze away. Oh right, Kushina said, I shouldn't be bothering you then. Of course, I'll go now. Before she could leave, however, Naruto called out. Mom? Why, yes? I know my story was hard to believe, but I'm so glad that I have you in my life now. Kushina nodded. Even as new and accepting as she'd been to him. She really couldn't believe it. Her son. Or well, not her son, but a son of a version of her. But still. To Kushina, that was more than enough. Her throat had suddenly become dry over the welling up of emotions, tossing her qualms to the wind. Would you mind if I stay here? To make sure you don't disappear? Naruto smiled. Of course. Kushina came over to lay beside him, placing the lamp light on the bedside table. Not able to hold back, embraced him once more, shaking from her sobs. Before they knew it, they fell asleep in each other's arms. And so, the second day of Naruto's new world experience was coming to an end. Day 3. Naruto woke up in the morning and all he saw was red. Not in the figurative way to indicate he was angry, but he literally just saw red. It was his mother's hair, he realized. It was so vibrant, like fine strings of ruby, glistening in the subtle light of the rising sun leaking from the window. He tried to gently disentangle himself from her hair, and after a few minutes of slowly picking the strands out of his face with his hand, he could finally see again. And found that his mother was nestled up to him like an overgrown squirrel. For someone in her 30s, from his guess, she looked rather young, as if she was in her early 20s. Perhaps it was the Uzumaki life force keeping her youthful. He knew very little about his bloodline, and he was hoping to learn more from her. She looked considerably better than the tired, tanuki-eyed version he saw the day before. Almost as if she'd healed overnight from a long-suffering ailment. She was so pretty. Perhaps it was because he never had her in his life before, or the fact that he had no one to look to as a motherly figure, so when he gazed at her, he didn't see his mother, he saw a woman. An extraordinarily beautiful woman. Naruto snapped out of his thoughts, blushing furiously. He cursed his teenage hormones and banished whatever just happened to the deepest, darkest corners of his mind, never to resurface again. He slowly but surely extracted himself, untangling her clutching limbs from his torso and replacing it with a pillow. She was in deep sleep, he discerned, for she didn't even give so much as a twitch when he moved her. When he was finally free, He covered her with a blanket, making it act as a barrier between him and his undesirable thoughts. He found himself in the bathroom a moment later, and thankfully relieved himself in more ways than one, guilt hanging over his thoughts. Once the deed was over, he cleansed his thoughts for the final time, evicting the corruption that was placed by his late godfather. He set out to make breakfast. He took his time in exploring the kitchen. It wasn't like he had anything planned today other than going clothes shopping. He checked the cupboard one by one to familiarize where things were. He had offered to pay rent during his stay here, but his mother only scowled at the attempt. She'd said that this house was far too big for one person, and if he wasn't going to move in, then she'd hunt him down and chain him up in the basement. Naruto chuckled at the memory. His mother was fiery and fierce, as was so often described by those who knew her in his past life. He drew open the utensils drawer, closed it, then the spice drawer next. It seemed that her gantry wasn't very well stocked, suggesting that she didn't really put in the effort in her cooking. Because why would she? Who was she cooking for? No one but herself. Naruto felt a pang of sympathy for her. To be alone all this time after having lost her family. He was a kindred soul in that sense, for he spent most of his life alone too. He suspected that this gantry was soon to be filled with more and more things now that he was here. They'd experiment in cooking together. He smiled at the thought. Then he spotted a carton of eggs in one of the cupboards, and a simple test by submerging some in water to see if they'd float, a trick he'd learned from Sakura, told him that they were fresh. He grabbed a frying pan, turned on the flames, and started cooking. It was therapeutic for him to cook. Contrary to popular belief, he didn't have 3 meals of ramen a day. He just had 1 meal of ramen every day. Alright, he was still a ramen addict, but he could cook simple things too. Like fried eggs. He could make fried eggs. With Kushina. Kushina awoke to bliss. She hadn't slept this well in a long time. A full night's rest without any nightmares to plague her thoughts and dreams. Her bleary eyes came in and out of focus before realizing that she was not in her usual bedroom. Then it all came rushing back to her. Her son. Her son! He'd come home. She snapped her head to both sides, taking deep breaths to calm herself. A scent that was definitely not her own invaded her nostrils. It was masculine, yet still sweet, almost like apples and honey. It intoxicated her. "And Naruto?" she mumbled. For a moment her heart dropped, thinking that what she'd experienced the day before was but a lucid dream, but she reminded herself that it couldn't be. It was far too real. It felt far too real. Not even an Uchiha could conjure something to that extent. And sure enough, the smell of something cooking alerted her to a living presence. She flared out her senses and, like looking into a blinding beam of light, she found him. Restrained like he was yesterday when trying to spy on her, his chakra capacity had already been quite large despite being held down. Now, it was like comparing a bowl of water to the ocean. It was the first thing she noticed about him, and the first thing to convince her that he was who he said he was. None other than a fully fledged Uzumaki could ever hope to have even half the chakra capacity contained within him. How much he'd been through to become this powerful, she could not understand. She could not truly comprehend the significance of every event he'd described, some of which were so incredible that it could be written in a book of epic tales. But that wasn't the most important thing she cared about. She'd have time to understand his worries and experience in time. She'd say it as many times as it takes. She just cares that he's here with her. She bolted out of the spare bedroom, and to her immense relief, there he was, still in his ragged undershirt and orange pants. "Naruto," the words came out of her lips reflexively. "Just to confirm that his existence is real. That he is real." He turned to her, surprised, before blushing for some odd reason. "Ah, Mom. Gee, good morning. Sorry, did I accidentally wake you?" She rushed over to hug him for the she didn't care how many times in 24 hours. She will continue to give him hugs until she laid her doubts to rest on whether his existence was an illusion. For some reason her son was so surprised by this gesture that he hiccuped and blushed terribly. "So what are your plans, son?" Kushina asked as she enjoyed the simple but hearty meal of egg and rice before her, with a bit of soy sauce for seasoning. It was made by her son. That made it more delicious than anything she'd ever tasted. "Well, I'd want to buy new clothes for one," Naruto responded, his eyes bouncing anywhere but in her direction. He must be truly fascinated in the house she lived in, though ashamedly it was still a bit dusty from neglect. She let out a giggle. "I meant for the foreseeable future, not today's plan." Naruto blushed. Oh, well, I'm not really sure." He leaned on the backrest of his chair, having already finished his meal. I suppose I will take it one day at a time. There's no telling how much different this world will be from my own. Maybe the events of my past will never happen here. Kushina nodded. Like I said yesterday, remember that I'll be by your side, son, even if the world turns against you. You can count on it. Naruto smiled and his heart warmed. Thanks, Mom. Kushina returned the smile. Are you planning on enlisting as a ninja again? Naruto shrugged. I don't know. I don't want to go to the academy and take the ninja ranking process all over again. Heck, I'm still technically a genin from my world. With the war going on and all, I was apparently too unavailable to get promoted. Kushina contemplated her son's worries. I can put in a good word for you if you want. Maybe if you show your capabilities, Hiruzen can place you in a rank appropriate to you. Hiruzen? Naruto jumped at the name. He realized that just like Jiraiya, the old man was still alive. Orochimaru hadn't killed him. HM? Kushina made a sound, then his story from yesterday came back to her. Ah, right, you said that in your world, he was killed by Orochimaru, didn't you? Naruto nodded, feeling bitter at the memory. I was 13 when he died. In a sense, he was the grandfather figure I had during my childhood. I loved him like one, despite his shortcomings. Kushina reached out to place her hand above his, though she was still secretly furious at how little Hiruzen had done for her son. Sure, she understood that Naruto, being a Jinchuriki, couldn't align himself with a clan for political reasons, but he still should have been taken care of more than he was. She could understand that Hiruzen was limited in aiding her boy due to his duties as Hokage to a weakened Konoha after the tragic night, and she could appreciate that, at the very least, he still did something in giving him a house and occasionally checking up on him. Hiruzen was often too soft on people, kind-hearted as he was. He'd let himself be taken advantage of far too much, especially by that Danzo friend of his as well as his wayward student Orochimaru. Kushina could see him being pulled in far too many directions to make time for a boy who was struggling behind his sunny personality. Kushina shook her head. Well, he's alive now, and he's just as kind of a man as the one you described to me from your world. Though kind doesn't always make him right. Ah, really? Naruto asked, oblivious to her thoughts. Really, Kushina confirmed. If you want to tell him about your story, you can, and I have enough political power to make him shut up about it afterwards, though I suspect that the old Kaja wouldn't say a word to anyone about it anyway. He's too kind for a ninja, much less a Hokage, but he's probably the only one smart enough to believe in parallel worlds and whatnot, other than me of course. Naruto looked down at his hands. I would love to meet him again. Kushina stared at her son. Do you want to be a ninja, son? After all you've been through? Are you willing to take up the responsibility placed on you? Naruto thought long and hard about it, being silent for a few minutes while his mother finished her food. I have to, mother. I won't be a bystander when the world collapses upon itself. It would be a disservice to the sage who put me here. Naruto bit his lip. Kushina shook her head. I don't care about the sage or anyone else. I care about you, son. If you don't want to shoulder the burden, then you shouldn't have to, prophecy or not. Naruto disagreed. I do have to, but I also want to. I would be able to save so many people, to help so many people. But this time, perhaps I can go about this a different way. A way that I don't have to shoulder everything myself. A gleam in his eyes showed his determination. I'll be a ninja, and I'll meet the Hokage about it, but I won't be a tool for the village. Nishu was made for peace and understanding, not for death and destruction, although I've learned that sometimes it is necessary to kill for justice. Regardless, it should never be the first option. I want to spread that message. Then I'll ask Hiruzen to come over for dinner today, she said, as if inviting the most important man in the village for dinner was a mundane chore like watering the flowers. Just like that? Naruto blinked, a bit flabbergasted. She smirked at him. Being the only Fuinjutsu master in the village has its perks. Besides, I haven't asked anything of him in a long time. He'll accept. Even if he had an important meeting scheduled this evening. Ah, I see. Kushina nodded before smiling. Now, let's clean everything up, get dressed, and go shopping. For some reason, a shiver ran down Naruto's spine. No, try this one instead, Kushina said, handing yet another shirt over to him. But it's not. It's not orange, I know, but it'll look good on you. With how minimally Naruto was hinged, he didn't really have to change back into what he normally looked like for Kushina to have that womanly sense on how well the clothes fit him, especially after she had his very image etched into her mind. As if she'd ever forget what her son looked like despite only meeting him yesterday. In this case, the dark blue shirt sold his lean, muscular figure nicely. Her son was handsome, without a doubt. He was like Minato, in a sense, but his features were less sharp and more rounded, making him seem less intense and more cheerful. In her humble, totally not biased opinion, her son looked even more handsome than her late husband, no small part thanks to her own features mixed in. Though she suspected that the social discrimination towards him had eradicated any chance he had with girls growing up, and thereby making him unaware of just how many looks and glances he'd attracted even during their walk here. She need to be careful lest some harlot snatches him up. As if she'd let anyone play with her son's heart. Naruto, on the other hand, was rather gloomy as all of his orange suggestions were firmly put aside for his mother's tastes. He really wanted that one trousers with the orange flames, but it was a lost cause in convincing his mom. He tried the shirt on in the changing room and went back outside. Only to catch the eye of another person who just entered the shop. It was none other than Yamanaka Ino. "Oh, hey!" she called out, "what a coincidence!" Both Naruto and Kushina turned towards her. "It's Yuki-kun, right?" she said, coming over to them. Kushina raised a delicate eyebrow at Naruto. He'd spent so much time telling her of his backstory that he forgot to tell her about his cover name, so he awkwardly replied, "Yeah, it's Yuki Neru, nice to see you again." "Ha ha 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 ya." Kushina hit a snicker at just how bad her son was at going undercover. Yuki Neru? Seriously? That's already the majority of his first name in his fake one, and what was that obvious hint he gave her? Did he forget that she was a former jonin and could easily read between the lines? She found it achingly adorable at how straightforward he was. Luckily for him, it seemed that the Yamanaka kid was too enthralled with him to notice his terrible acting. Speaking of potential harlots, Kushina thought. "Oh, are you buying clothes? I could help you with that," Ino said, almost leaping at the chance to spend more time with her son. Some part of Kushina felt annoyed that this vixen would even try to take her beloved son from her when she was standing right there. And so, before Naruto could even reply, she shot down the offer. "Thank you for the offer, Miss Yamanaka, but I have it handled." As if just noticing her presence, Ino almost leapt from her spot. "Oh Kami, Lady Uzumaki. Forgive my rudeness in not greeting you." Kushina smiled, knowing how a teenage girl could get tunnel-visioned in the vicinity of a hot boy, but that boy was her son. Was this that motherly protectiveness that she'd heard so much about? Some part of her felt proud that she was feeling this way. The same part felt proud of her feeling proud. What a paradox. She could create an infinite loop of pride doing this. "It's quite alright, Miss Yamanaka. As it turns out, Naruto-in here." Naruto's eyebrows twitched at the nickname. "Is a long-lost relative of Minato's. I saw fit to help his situation out, seeing how he just moved here," Kushina said. Naruto noticed that she wasn't technically lying, just omitting the details. "Ah, I see." Ino sounded dejected. But Naruto, bless his kind heart, jumped in after seeing her disappointed expression. "Don't worry, Yamanaka-san, I'll come by your store later today to buy some flowers for Lady Uzumaki. It's the least I can do for her after she kindly welcomed me into her home." "Ah," Ino said, immediately doing an emotional 180, "I'll be looking forward to it. And you live in the Uzumaki residence now? That's wonderful news." Kushina rolled her eyes at how easily her son gave into the puppy eyes of this young flower girl. Now she knew where she lived and got an appointment with him later on during the day. She'd need to teach him to be more resistant to womanly manipulations lest he'd be dragged by the nose by every girl who'd even so much as give him a pout. "Anyways, I guess I'll go back to shopping for my own clothes then," Ino said, going over to the women's section. Kushina resisted the urge to roll her eyes once more. Ino was without a doubt spying on her son from the so-called women's section. Her son, bless him, was oblivious to all that just happened. "Naru-kun?" Kushina said. Something in the tone of his mother's voice made his hair stand on end. "Why, yes? I have much to teach you." "Ah, right." Naruto did want to learn a lot from her, especially things regarding his clan, but something told him that that wasn't what she meant. "Now try these on for size," Kushina said as she handed him yet another shirt. Naruto sighed but did as he was told. Meanwhile, Ino was between the clotheslines, with her eyes caring more about the free fashion show she was getting than what she intended to buy, especially with such a hot model. That afternoon saw Naruto upon the front entrance of the Yamanaka shop whilst his mother set out upon meeting the Hokage. Naruto had told her about the root situation in his old world and advised her to not let anything of importance spill in Hiruzen's office. She told him that she was a big girl and could handle herself, much to his amusement. She also apparently ran a Fuinjutsu seal shop in the same clan district, but had already arranged a manager, who she said had been desperate for the position, to look after it. He opened the entrance door, peeking his head in to check if the store was open despite the sign displaying so. It was actually a habit from being kicked out of one too many stores during his childhood where he just walked in without seeing the invisible "No QB Brat Allowed" sign. Ino had spotted him immediately. "Hiya Yuki, Kun," she called out. Naruto waved a hand at her. "Yo." She bounded up to him and placed her arm behind her back to peer at him. "Where's Lady Uzumaki?" "She's with the Hokage for a meeting," Naruto answered. Ino nodded, checking around to make sure the coast is clear then. Naruto looked at her, his head tilted. "Eh? What do you, ack?" Ino grabbed his arm and placed it between her bosom, leading him further inwards. Naruto blushed. "Yamanaka-san? Water." "I'm giving you a tour," she cut in, smiling cheerfully. There was something in that smile, Naruto realized, that made him feel like a deer before a hunter. His spine tingled. Right. They spent an hour and a half just looking at which flowers worked for what occasion. Naruto had admittedly learned a lot from Ino as she explained one flower after another to him and honestly found it all quite interesting. He could see the passion she had for her plants and he, too, did a little gardening at home, though they were mainly fruits and vegetables, so he could appreciate the hard work that went into growing these gorgeous plants. In the end, Naruto left with a bouquet of hydrangeas and a few sunflowers for his own personal preferences. "Thanks, Yamanaka-san." This time, Ino had caught his slip. She blushed. Did you just try to call me Ino?" Thinking up an excuse on the spot, Naruto came up with, sorry, in my village, people just called each other by their given names rather than surnames. I guess old habits die hard. Ahahahaha. He had to admit, that was a pretty good excuse. He needed to congratulate himself with a bowl of ramen for lunch. Ino was still blushing, then she grabbed a lock of her hair and played with it. She mumbled beneath her breath. "Sorry, what was that?" Naruto asked. I don't mind it," Ino said louder. Naruto smiled. Score, now there was one less person who he didn't have to catch himself from calling them what he did before. "Great. Thanks for today, Ino, you can just call me Neru if you want Databeo." Ino gave him a wobbly smile and nodded, seeming almost giddy. Naruto left the store smiling, before heading home to leave the flowers in a spare vase his mother had first. Then it was Ichiraku ramen. Before long, he was whistling to himself when entering his beloved ramen stall before he spotted yet another person he recognized. Iruka-sensei. Naruto stopped in his tracks before reminding himself that this was a new world, and they have no connection between each other whatsoever. "Play it cool, Naruto. Play it cool." "Welcome." This time it was the upbeat voice of Iam who greeted him. "Oh. It's you again, welcome back. I'm glad we left a good enough impression on you for you to come by." Naruto smiled. "Ichiraku's the best ramen stall in the world, Databeo." Tucci laughed at that and Iam beamed, both taking pride in their work. Iruka, who was the only other person in the stall, turned and smiled at the jubilant nature of the new customer before going back to his bowl. Naruto decided to order his true favorite this time, miso chashu ramen. 3 bowls. He decided to save his stomach for the dinner he was promised by his mother. He was about to speak up and make conversation with Iruka when a voice called out from behind him. "Heya! Sensei, fancy seeing you here." Naruto glanced backwards and saw that it was Kiba. The Inuzuka clan heir ignored him. Out of all the Konoha's Dream Team members, Naruto was least close to Kiba. There was sort of a rift between them ever since Naruto had one-upped him in the preliminary Chunin exams, and despite Naruto's denseness, even he noticed that the Inuzuka held unrequited feelings towards Hinata, who in turn, liked Naruto. He could sympathize with Kiba, with him having feelings of his own towards Sakura. There was a lot between them that prevented them from forming a close relationship, although he was still one of the people Naruto would gladly have to guard his back on the battlefield. Naruto decided to stay quiet and see how the interaction would play out. Kiba took the chair to the opposite side of Iruka from where Naruto was sitting. "Oh, Kiba, congratulations on passing the exam. Are you excited to be a genin?" "OSU. Kiba agreed. I'm just excited about who'll get to be our instructor. Hopefully it'll be Jonin Kurenai. At this, Kiba had a dreamy look on his face, to Irika's annoyance. Baka! Irika slapped Kiba on the head. Don't talk about your potential senseis like that. Naruto listened to their conversation with a sort of strange mix of jealousy and relief. He was jealous because it was he who Irika used to treat like that, but he was also glad that Irika had a close connection to anyone at all. In the end, he found that he didn't really mind that it was the way it is. He was glad that Irika was happy and he had his mother now, who can take on Irika's role of watching over him. Here's your first bowl of miso ramen, Ayam said, placing the steaming bowl of goodness in front of him. She then walked over to Kiba. Welcome. What would you like to order? Kiba smirked. Well, I'd love to have you on my plate, so I can have the pleasure of eating you out. For things happened simultaneously as the words left Kiba's mouth. Naruto almost spat his ramen out, which was a sin against nature. Irika smacked Kiba so hard, he was likely to have a concussion. Ayam looked on the verge of committing murder in front of her. And Tucci was about to hand over to her his cleaver. I see, she said. Her eyebrows twitched dangerously. Dear customer, we only serve ramen here. If you'd like to explore more tasteless options, do explore establishments elsewhere from here. Now, if you aren't going to order, then I'd suggest you leave. Irika apologized frantically. I'm so incredibly sorry, miss. I'll take my foolish student and go, and here's a tip for your troubles. With that, Irika dragged the semi-conscious, foaming at the mouth Kiba out of the stall and made his way elsewhere. Naruto just watched on in morbid fascination. That was funny as heck. Naruto held in his laughter though, not to irritate the already irate Ayam any further. She glanced over at him and Naruto discreetly proceeded to chow down on his ramen, pretending like he saw nothing. Ayam sighed. Kids these days, no manners or courtesy. Naruto put his empty bowl down and raised his eyebrow. Are you including me in that statement? Ayam was flustered in the realization that she might have directed that at him as well, and, no, of course not, dear customer, you've been nothing but polite. Naruto laughed. I sure hope so. I'd hate to be kicked out of one of the only stalls serving the food of the gods. But you don't look that much older than us, miss. Perhaps that was why he was trying to have a pass at you. Ayam looked surprised at the underhanded compliment. She giggled. Oh. My. Even still, he shouldn't have said anything that crass. Naruto raised his cup of water. To that, we can both agree. I suppose I'll have another serving on his behalf, a gesture to the lost customer. Ayam smiled in her usual warm, sisterly way. Coming right up. Then she muttered under her breath. Perhaps chivalry isn't dead after all. Naruto didn't really have anything to do after lunch, so he set out to the training grounds as he did yesterday, hoping to get some work in. He didn't want to get too rusty despite only being 2 days since his most recent life or death battle. He wanted to get used to his new arm. Eventually he arrived oddly at the same place he met Hinata yesterday. She wasn't here, and for some weird reason a small part of him was disappointed. He'd wanted to meet his friend again, get to know her a bit more. Alas, he continued with his plans. He did his dynamic stretches, getting his muscles warm and joints loose. His mother had graciously paid, despite him being perfectly capable of paying, for a few sets of clothes for different occasions, and the outfit he was wearing now was meant for exercise. It was cheap and he could get it wrecked without feeling too guilty. He'd never really cared too much before, but now that the very things he was wearing became a gift rather than just a possession, he had reservations against trashing it. Once he was ready, he approached the training log and struck with the fist of his newly attached arm. The log broke. Naruto looked at his fist in confusion. Then he grabbed another log and did the same thing with the other arm. It too broke into tiny splinters. That's weird, I don't remember being this strong, Naruto muttered. In fact, Sakura was usually the strong one. Naruto's physical strength was something he'd always been proud of, but it was never something this effortlessly strong. He wondered what changed for it to be this way. He thought of his skill set, though he didn't dare test his more extravagant jutsus in public. He had no idea whether someone was watching him even at this moment. He wondered if he could still do a Rasengan or Sage Mode or summon the toads. Alright, that was the exception. He needed to test it out. He bit his thumb, formed the hand signs, channeled just enough chakra to summon a small toad, and with fierce deliberation, he slammed it on the ground. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. Nothing. He tried it again with various degrees of chakra channeled into it. And again. And again. Still nothing. Naruto slumped, almost disappointed that he wasn't able to get it to work. It made sense, he supposed, that this world's toad summoning scroll was yet to have his name written on it, and thus he was unable to summon his beloved companions. He suspected, though, that he could still use Sage Mode and Rasengan just fine, considering it took no effort at all to use his shadow clones. Ano, a voice called out from nearby, and Naruto's soul had almost departed from his body with how startled he was. He was so focused on getting his summoning jutsu to work that he wasn't paying much attention to his surroundings at all. Naruto whipped around but relaxed once he saw that it was the same person he met here yesterday. It was none other than Hinata Hyuga. She was wearing a simple black training garment this time, with a long-sleeved shirt that had a modest neckline, as well as long pants that went all the way to her heel. What it didn't hide, though, were the bountiful assets that she had. Naruto blushed, thinking that perhaps this was why she wore jumpers all the time. Hinata, being as astute as she was, didn't miss how Naruto's eyes had momentarily bounced towards her generous bosom. She blushed red, but managed to hold herself together in order to get what she was here for. Hello again, friend Yuki-san. Naruto arched an eyebrow at her. Did you really just call me friend Yuki-san? Hinata felt like she wanted to run away again. She really wanted to. Friend Yuki-san? Could she have not made it any more awkward? To Hinata's embarrassment, Naruto burst out laughing, but he was quick to apologize. Aha, oh, Kami, ahaha, I'm sorry. It took a moment for him to gather himself, and it was just in time too, because Hinata was feeling like she was going to faint with the blood rushing to her head. Ah, that was honestly adorable, Naruto said, controlling himself. It's great to see you too, friend Hinata. Naruto absolutely forgot that he had to address Hinata as Hyuga-san. He realized his mistake immediately as she did, in fact, faint on the spot. Thankfully he grabbed her before she collapsed, mumbling, "What's with people fainting around me these days?" It took Hinata a few minutes to regain consciousness. She'd had the terribly embarrassing dream that her next interaction with her new friend would go to the bad case scenario #34 route that she'd meticulously mapped out. Her bleary eyes looked up into beautiful tree branches that rusted with the wind. Naruto's face appeared above her. Yo! Hinata shot up and almost headbutted him in the jaw. Then, to her mortification, she realized that the interaction she just witnessed wasn't a dream at all. She wanted the earth to eat her alive, to make it painful before she was swallowed so that she would at least not go out in shame. Oh Kami, okami, the words came at a rapid pace as she freaked out. Hey! Look at me! Naruto said, grabbing her shoulders. His grip was strong, and as steady as anything she'd felt in her life. Take it easy on yourself, alright? I know you're new at this friendship thing, so I'm not judging. Don't freak out, Databeo. Hinata took a moment to compose herself before she nodded. The beaming smile he sent her way somewhat set her anxiety at ease. So are you here to train? He asked, changing the subject and successfully distracting her. Yeah? Hinata wished she was more affluent in the art of not making a fool out of herself. You're wearing training clothes, Naruto pointed out. I'm guessing you're here to get some sparring in. Hi, she nodded. I just lost another spar and was hoping to come here to work on what I did wrong. At this, Naruto contemplated. I know. Why don't you practice on me? Hinata looked at him wide-eyed. I couldn't possibly. Naruto interrupted her. Trust me, it'll be fine. Plus, I'm pretty good at this, you know? It'll just be slow and steady practice, no jutsu or chakra techniques. Just pure taijutsu, so no Byakugan. What do you think? Hinata did not want to hurt her friend. She didn't want to take any chances, really, that might potentially scare him away. She really needed to check on her interaction with friend's notebook. Before she could reject, however, Naruto put his hand on top of hers, making her gasp. It's alright, you know? You can trust me, Databeo. Hinata felt like she was about to melt in a good way this time. She asked herself whether she really wanted to do this, to potentially put their relationship in jeopardy. Friends don't come by her often, and she would be damned to let this one go. But wouldn't refusing also mean that she didn't trust him? She decided to take the gamble. Alright, just light sparring then? No jutsu or chakra? She confirmed. Yash! Naruto cheered. It's been a while since I had a friendly spar. Spars to the death aside. Hinata nodded shakily before standing up and going towards a clearing where there were no protruding rocks or hidden roots that might cause a person to slip. With Naruto, all that was going on in his head was, "This is for her, so don't punch her like you did that log, Naruto. Nice and easy. Love taps, no baby taps. Palms open. No fists. Alright. Control yourself, Naruto." He breathed once he got into position. Then he smiled at her. "Are you ready?" She nodded, getting into the classic Hyuga Juken stance, though she didn't activate her Byakugan, abiding by the rules. Naruto put his arms up, though unclenching them to make open palms instead of fists. He had no style as the number one most unpredictable ninja, but over the years, he refined his no-style type of taijutsu into something that could adapt to just about anything thrown at him, rather than just random moves like he did in his youth. Hinata was the first to make a move, dashing in and sending a Juken strike to his chest, choreographing her attack so he could see it coming. Naruto dodged, sidestepping and grabbing her wrist and using it to do a simple hip throw, being as gentle as possible. It seemed to be the right amount of strength, as she didn't grimace or shout in pain. A second later, Hinata found herself staring at the sky, surprised. She knew that the initial spar against a new partner required them to feel each other out, so she took it slow in her first move. She just didn't expect for him to so easily come up with a counter this quickly. She got back up and reassessed her opponent. She'd been in many spars with those who far exceed her ability in taijutsu, but this person had moved with such ease that it was as if he'd lived and breathed fighting for a long time. "Are you a genin ninja yourself?" she asked. For some reason that made her opponent slump. "Yeah, sort of," Naruto answered. "At this rate, he'll be the new eternal genin." Then he shook his head and put his attention back on her. He got into his stance once more, signaling that he was ready. This time Hinata's attack came faster, but he still evaded it. 2 strikes. 4 strikes. 8. 16. Naruto was hesitant to fight back due to being unused to his strength, but that was the main purpose of his fighting style. Adapt. He slipped another Juken to his ribs, grabbing her wrist and tripping her. Hinata was on the floor again. She was baffled. She'd been defeated before by her cousin and her sister, but at least it could be considered a fight. She'd never been taken down with such ease, Byakugan or not. She stood back up. How? Naruto looked surprised at her question. "Well, I grabbed your wrist and used your momentum against you." He wasn't the best at explaining things. "No, I mean, how are you this good?" she asked, taking deep breaths to recover after her barrage of strikes. Naruto looked forlorn. "I may not look like it, but I've been through a lot for my age." Hinata scrambled backwards in her speech. I didn't mean to accuse you of anything." No, Naruto shook his head, "It's completely fine. You should be asking questions, but I'm afraid I can't share the details with you yet. Would you be patient with me?" "Of course," Hinata responded immediately. "I'm grateful, actually, that you're taking the time to help me out. I know I'm not much." "Don't say that," Naruto interrupted to her surprise. "Don't put yourself down like that ever again, alright? No friend of mine is ever useless or incapable, or weak. Believe in yourself, Databeo." Hinata could only nod, overwhelmed by the encouragement that her friend gave her. Honestly, out of every terrible thing that happened today or for the past week, even just those words alone had turned out to be worth everything she'd endured. Thank you, Yuki-san. Naruto. Yeah? My real name is Naruto, he said. It's one of those secrets from me that I ask you to be patient with. If you don't mind, I'd like to put my trust in you, if that's alright? The main reason Naruto made up a fake name in the first place was because he was heeding Kurama's advice when infiltrating the village. Then the reason evolved to whether there was another Naruto Uzumaki who existed in the world. Now that he confirmed that there wasn't, he was comfortable sharing his real given name but still chose to omit his last name, especially to those who he got a read on. Especially if she was someone as genuine and kind as the person he saw in front of him. She was trustworthy. She looked at him strangely. Then Naruto caught on to the unasked question. Hey, I'm not a spy. So don't freak out, alright? Hinata kept staring at him, then she let out a giggle, then a laugh. It was the first time Naruto had seen her laugh since coming here. He hadn't even caught her laughing often, if at all, in his old world. Only smiles and giggles. She was so reserved around him. Now, though, he felt like he just told the world's funniest joke. He joined her in laughing. That's what a spy would say, she got out, in between her chuckles. Then again, you'd be the strangest spy I'd ever met. It took a moment before it died down. Hinata contained herself, blushing at her outburst. I know we've only met just yesterday, you, Naruto-san, but I don't think you're a bad person. And the fact that you told me this after 2 days, despite whatever reasons you may have to use a fake name, shows me that you'd be a rather terrible spy if I'd ever seen one. Naruto looked like a kicked puppy, much to Hinata's subtle amusement. But I think you're straightforward and genuine, she continued, so if you trust me enough with your secrets, then I will trust you as well. Hinata, Naruto said, and again, his use of her first name slipped out. She blushed again. Sorry, I'm used to calling people I consider friends by their first names, Naruto said, scratching his head as he usually did when unsure. Is that too forward? I can go back to. No. Hinata intruded, still red from ear to ear. I don't mind at all. Great. Naruto cheered. Now there were 2 less people to get names mixed up. They went back to sparring again. As time passed, Hinata was becoming more and more comfortable with the training session. Her strikes came at full speed, knowing her opponent could easily dodge it, though she could tell he was holding back. Naruto-san? She inquired, pausing in her strikes. HM? He responded, relaxing his stance, just Naruto is alright, Databayo. It feels weird to be addressed in an honorific title. Alright, Naruto-kun, she finished. At this point, Naruto chose to consider blushing a lot to just be a feature of hers, but his heart almost stopped at the name she gave him. It was the same one as the Hinata of his world gave him. Now, it was his turn to blush. Jumping the fence, already? Alright then, Hinata-chan. He wondered if their relationship was going too quickly in this new world. Perhaps it was born from Hinata's desperation to have a friend. He didn't mind it, he just hoped that she wouldn't be as quick to trust someone less trustworthy. Oh, Hinata was utilizing her blushing feature again. It was even redder this time than all the previous times. She put her hand on her cheek and sat down in a crouch, placing her burning face to the gap between the top of her knees. Hinata-chan? Naruto inquired, tilting his head. Are you okay? She gave the smallest nod imaginable, but Naruto took it for confirmation. Alright, what was it that you wanted to ask me? Hinata poked her head out of her little human hedgehog-like ball. I was just wondering why you were holding back. You're not even hitting back at all. Naruto looked like a kid who got caught stealing from the cookie jar. Well, you see, I don't really know how to put this, but I just recently came upon this newfound physical strength. Strength that I'm currently unable to control safely. Hinata's eyebrows scrunched, thinking. I see. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you can really do in the future then, Naruto-kun. The blush was still rosy on her cheeks, but Naruto could tell that she was slowly getting used to addressing him that way. Naruto smiled and gave her a thumbs up. And I'm looking forward to when you're right there with me, helping me kick names and take asses. Then his eyebrows scrunched. Wait, that's not how that goes. Hinata guffawed as she got up. Kick names, take asses? Naruto found that when she wasn't concentrating on how she comes off as towards everyone else, she was rather expressive, especially when she was laughing even at his expense. Naruto rolled his eyes, though he was smiling. Are you ready for another round? Before Hinata could answer, he was right on top of her, grabbing her wrist and treating her like a puppet on a string. You know, you're rather rigid when fighting, Naruto stated from observation. He remembered that Hinata had adapted her fighting style to suit her rather than the start method of approach that most of her clans used. They had finished their training and were leaning against a tree, next to each other. It seemed that the more time Hinata spent in his presence, the less self-conscious she became. To Naruto, that was major progress. The Jukin requires rigidity to perform precise, accurate, and effective strikes, she said, almost as if reading off a book. Naruto shook his head. You know you can experiment, right? You don't have to fight like the rest of them. Hinata shook her head. My father would scold me if I swayed from the fundamentals. Naruto felt the urge to go over and punch her dad, as rude as that sounds. That doesn't seem right. Hinata said, surprised. Experiment, Naruto encouraged enthusiastically. Try new things if it doesn't work for you. That's how I learned. But my father said to focus on the things I need to do right, not to stray from what I already know, what I've already been taught. You know, Hinata, Naruto said after a moment of contemplation, if you only do what you can do, you'll never be more than what you are now. Naruto got that quote from the vision of a wise turtle? It was a strange dream he had. Hinata looked at him for a moment, taking in his words. Then her face lit up like she had heard something truly enlightening. That was your right, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled at her. How about this? What do you say if we meet up at around the same time tomorrow? Then we can practice trying out new styles for you, or even just adapting the techniques you've already learned. Hinata stared like she couldn't take her eyes off him if she tried. I would love that. Ah, and she was blushing profusely again. Yet Naruto found that the way her face lit up was rather pretty. Naruto was waiting in the dining room, trying to swallow his nervousness. It's just GG, Naruto. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. He heard his mom opening the front door. I'm glad you could make it. Then he heard the familiar and oh so nostalgic voice respond. It was a voice he hadn't heard for years and almost made him tear up just listening to it. Of course I would make it, Kushina. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Now, what was it you wanted to show me? Hiruzen asked. Naruto had not revealed himself yet. Well, it's a bit hard to explain, but please come in first, she said. The moment Hiruzen did, she activated all her privacy seals. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow at this, curious at what it was that warranted such caution from the beloved wife of his late successor. It was at that Naruto stepped forward from the dining room door. Hiruzen dropped his smoke pipe. This is an unbelievable account, Hiruzen muttered, alternate worlds from our own, and your story. Fighting Orochimaru Madara, a goddess? It's rather mind-boggling. Naruto had been more brief with the story with Hiruzen than Kushina due to time constraints, but he got the gist of it told. I know, it's crazy even hearing it coming from myself, but it's true. Hiruzen looked down at his plate of food. It was half-eaten, so absorbed in what he was being told. Yet your story makes sense. It all fits together too well, else how would you know that such a jutsu like the Edo Tensei even exists? How can you look just the way I imagine Minato and Kushina's son would look like? How would you know about the secrets of the Uchiha massacre? And things that if you say will happen in the future if they're true, it's just. Hiruzen felt like a headache was coming. He looked at Kushina. And you trust him? She nodded. Of course you do, Hiruzen shook his head. He knew just how desperate the Uzumaki matriarch was for peace over the years. He knew how much she struggled. He knew that the moment this Naruto stepped foot in her home, she would jump at the opportunity to have him in her life, no matter how outlandish this boy's story was. Hiruzen looked at the Konoha headband that was worn slanted to cover the boy's eye. And that? What happened to your eye? Naruto showed him. And Hiruzen could swear that he must be hallucinating. The Rinnegan. Naruto nodded solemnly. The eye that belonged to my friend, and my enemy, transplanted by the best medic in the world. Tsunade? Hiruzen queried. Naruto shook his head. Her disciple, Harino Sakura. Hiruzen's eyebrows rose. She's currently the top of the grade in the academy, though her combat skills could use some work. She's a genius, GG, Naruto said, smiling at the memory of his old crush. She deserves every opportunity you can give her. Hiruzen stared at the boy, taking in the nickname he had for him. It was actually quite derogatory, but this Naruto spoke to him in such familiarity that there was nothing but love behind his tone, yet there was also that sound of longing and of loss. You skipped over some parts, didn't you? Hiruzen said. Naruto looked down to his lap, but he nodded. How did I die? Hiruzen asked, curious about this strange spun tale, with so many secrets exposed and facts true that it would be impossible for even one such as Jiraiya and his spy network to even discover half of it. The impossibility of it made it believable, though Hiruzen could still not believe his ears. It took a moment for Naruto to get the words out, and even then, his voice broke when talking about his grandfather figure's death directly to the very man in front of him. Oh, Orochimaru killed you. He used Edo Tensei on the first and the second's corpses. Hiruzen clutched the chopstick so hard it broke into 4 pieces. That damnable student of mine, to think he would fall so far. Wait. Just because he was terrible in my world. I know, boy, Hiruzen interrupted. I know that if what you say is true, then the things of your world might not be completely true here. Yet too much is similar for me to ignore. That sat silently for a minute. Then Hiruzen shook his head and spoke up. Allow me to dwell on this for a few days. For now, let us finish this incredible dinner that you both made. He smiled that grandfatherly smile that Naruto had missed so much. Then he looked towards Kushina. As to honor all that you've done for this village, Kushina, I can assure you that this will stay a secret and no harm will be brought to Naruto. Kushina glared daggers into him. If you harm even a hair on his head, you can kiss this village goodbye, because I'll wipe it off the map. Had anyone else dared make such a threat to an acting Kage, they'd have been executed on the spot. But Hiruzen knew that the village owed this single individual more for saving it, even indirectly, more than thrice over. She was the only deterrent against other villages sending their Jinchuriki to invade, with her Uzumaki bloodline being the single greatest counter to a Bijou. Plus she was a seal master and an S-ranked shinobi. Also, she was known as the Red Hagoromo for a reason. Her temper couldn't be contained, and comments such as this were regular from her. Hiruzen was also too old to deal with this shit. Of course. Also, in regards to your ranking situation, how about we come up with a test for you, just to see how far along you truly are? While the boy had an outrageous story to tell, one that he was still in need of a long contemplation about, there was no denying his value. He had the Rinnegan. Just that fact alone was enough. Naruto nodded. While I'm ready for anything, I have to warn you about something, GG. Hearing my life story, what I've been through, I'm sure you understand that my duties and responsibilities belong not just to Konoha, but to the entire elemental nations. While I'm willing to re-enlist as a Konoha ninja once more, I will not become a weapon of this village, but only a shield to call upon when the time is needed. I'll fight on my own terms. Is this acceptable? Hiruzen smiled at the will the boy showed, the fire blazing in his eyes. He needed time to process the story he'd heard, but he had no doubt that the boy was truly Kushina's son. As bizarre as what he said was, something in Hiruzen wanted to believe him, to dive into the possibilities of multiple worlds, no universes. His scientific mind was itching, curious at the concept. He also wanted to believe that this